involving your home, give them a call today and check them out on the web, beaconplumbing.com. Joining us now is our great friend Boise State Alec, who we appreciate his dedication to public service and football coverage. Alec, good to have you with us.
Good morning, Kevin. Good to be on here.
That's right. Good to be on 580 KIDO. So another week of practice. What's going on, big boy?
Practice is looking good. Got to speak with a few of the offensive players this week. Wide receiver Cam Bates said he's really excited about how the offense is looking. I asked him what Maddox has improved on the most this year. He says his deep ball is looking good. I would agree with that. His deep ball is looking pretty nice. But, yeah, that's been good. The defensive side of the ball, I think, is looking very strong. I think there's a lot for them to be proud of. But, you know, they're halfway through fall camp. I think they're probably starting to turn their heads towards Oregon a little bit more as we get closer to the season. But, yeah, it's an exciting time.
Sure. When we're talking about, so you go to the practices, obviously, though, practice is one thing, games are something different.
Absolutely, yeah. They have not gotten to really put their heads down, and crack each other. I think Dylan Riley said that, he hasn't really gotten to lower the shoulder like he's wanted to because, they're trying to keep everybody healthy and all that. So the contact is not, game contact at this point in the summer. But, they're doing what they can, especially, with the smoke as well. They can't practice on the blue as much and they can't practice outside as much. They've been indoors a lot because of the smoke. So, not quite game speed, but they're doing what they can, it seems, and it's looking good.
For those of us that don't get the opportunity to watch the team in person, whether it's in practice or a game, what's the structure like when, you come into work, you get your cup of coffee, you talk to your coworkers that you may or may not like, maybe you have your chores to do, maybe you don't. What's that like? Because that is their job. What's it like being the fly on the wall, if you will?
Well, I can't get too detailed about the specifics, but essentially, like it's a full-on long football practice, and we only get a fraction of their day. We don't get to see their lifting periods or when they're eating or earlier practices that we get to see. We're only allowed at certain time slots. But they'll have team periods where they go and they do the ones versus ones, offense and defense. Spencer Danielson has talked about that, and then they'll transition to specific like game situations like red zone offense, 2-minute offense, goal line, and then they'll have an individual period, which is typically what we're more allowed to report on. It's a little bit more boring to watch, but it is good. You get to see all of the individual position coaches get to build relationships and coach their players more specifically. So they'll rotate between more individual things like that. They'll do tackling drills on defense, ball catching.
Is it like high school football practice where you to have the coaches motivating them? Do they blow the whistles? Can you paint the picture? You're a writer. Paint the picture, bro.
Yeah, we're in the indoor field. Yeah, and Spencer Danielson is an absolute hoot and a holler. He's blowing the whistle constantly, running up and down the field, doing high kick dances up and down the field, keeping everybody excited. A lot of intensity from the defensive coordinator as well. He's always running up, in between plays when they're doing team period, like running up to his players, yelling at him positively, like, yo, you need to do this, you need to do this, fixing things. There's a lot of passion, a lot of intensity. Everybody's hustling around in the field, they're whether it's from water breaks or from one drill to another. Yeah.
All right, more with Alec next. Kevin Miller, 580 KIDO. Boise State, do you feel old when you're covering the team since everybody's a lot younger than you?
Not necessarily, actually. There still are some guys about my age on the team, with the recent climate with how many years guys are allowed to play. There are some guys who are, 5th and 6th year seniors, on Boise State and on a lot of different teams. So, Yeah, I do feel old when I see, like Rashawn Jones out there, 18 years old, catching balls with the ones. That makes me feel a little old. But, it's all good fun. It's really fun to see.
Sure. A lot of people, though, I mean, you're throwing names at us, and we really don't know these people because in the new age of college football, people come in, people go out. So, I mean, just like a job, people quit, people get fired, people get better jobs. Have they spoken about developing that type of chemistry? And again, Alec, you've been around. They call you, your online name is Slim. They go, "What's up, Slim?" So the idea of building this culture, because again, I appreciate your reporting, but I don't know Dylan from Schmillen.
Right. Well, quick history. Rashawn Jones is actually a local guy. He's from Rocky Mountain High School. He's a wide receiver. This is his first year here with us. So he's a local talent, which has been fun to see. But, yeah, you are right. A lot of people do come and go. But I think Spencer Danielson has done a great job of maintaining and retaining talent. I think, as a group of 6 team, that's the most important thing, because, they've always touted Boise State as a developmental program. So we don't get very many 5-star recruits here. There's a lot of 3-star, 2-star talents, and the coaching staff is ideally supposed to, develop them and bring them up into what they're supposed to be, kind of like Ashton Genty.
Now, wait a minute. See, again, you're assuming we know these terms. So a 5-star, that's a high recruit, and a 2-star is a lower star. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, 2-star would be a less talented high school recruit, where a 5-star, those are the guys who are going to Oregon and Alabama and Georgia. They're getting highly recruited around the nation. 2 and 3 stars typically don't get as recruited by the bigger schools. But, yeah, back to the importance of retaining players. If you're going to develop all this talent and put, now with NIL, put money into these players and get them to where you want them to be, to where they're making, big plays like Ashton Genty was a couple years ago. The most challenging thing isn't even the recruiting part of it. It's maintaining them once they've kind of come to their peak form, because what's stopping Oregon from coming in and offering a player a boatload of money to come transfer to Oregon? That's going to be the biggest challenge for Boise State. So you are right. That's just the biggest challenge for a group of 6 schools as a whole right now with the current climate of college football.
Okay, so on our website, KIDOTalkRadio.com, we have one of your articles up about the punter, and we'll get the other one up soon about the helmets. But why are these stories so important that you've written about them on our website, KIDOTalkRadio.com, as well as all of our other Town Square Media websites?
Yeah, those ones are important because it's kind of the connection between, like this punter, he's from Australia. It's the connection between an Australian guy comes to Boise State and he's giving back to the community. I think that is really a huge part of what sports is about. Is what does the community mean to these players, and what do these players mean to the community? So Doyle is donating $50 every punt he lands inside the 20 to St. Luke's Children's Hospital. He's had experience with family members for him suffering from cancer and tumors and things of that nature. So it's important to him, and it helps out the community. And I think that's a huge part of what sports is about.
Yeah, no, and here you have this kid from Australia helping kids in Idaho, booting a football, if you will. Let's and again, a big story that has been blazing, and you've got some exclusive photos that we'll get up. But the helmet, 40 years of the blue. I mean, the blue's older than you, bro. The only life you've ever known is the blue.
It's true. It's true. I've only seen the blue, but yeah, there was a day when that field was green. Yeah, that's a fun story, and it's a fun anniversary this year to see them celebrating it with custom hand-painted helmets is really, really cool to see. I'm sure it wasn't cheap to get those helmets, but it's a cool way to celebrate it. And, it's what makes Boise State so iconic. We've finished, top 5 before in, must-see college sporting stadiums to go visit. So I think it's very
right. But I
what they're
mean,
doing.
but building upon the news we broke last week concerning the money, I mean, they are selling those helmets. They will make money off that. And again, this week that they've got a big sponsor. And this is the funniest thing. You know, this is where we go a little bit differently. You can talk about the jocks and the schmocks and the cleats, and those are great stories. But Boise State is supported by you, the taxpayer, and it is a public university, and obviously they have to make money. So, as the story we broke last week, not a tough one for the athletic department to say, look, we had to settle this lawsuit. We have a $2 million deficit this year, could get even higher. But again, everybody led with the projected or the deficit that could happen, not the stewardship that they're $2 million down. So financially, when we're taking a look at this, has there been any reaction at practice to this disclosure? Because we really have never worried about money until now.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's been a reaction amongst players at practice. I think the coaching staff and the different departments have done a good job of just keeping the players playing football. But you are right. Operating at a $2 million deficit just this year is not good news, and it is not something that we've had to deal with. I believe we have like $10 million set aside for revenue sharing for the players, and that is something that they're sticking to for the players to be able to pay them. But no, as far as practice goes, I'd say that they're pretty focused on the upcoming season. I think it's poor timing right now for this news to be breaking, just 2 weeks before week one. But, with what Boise State and all the other schools who left the Mountain West, what they owe to the Mountain West, I believe it's like $10 million per school, just about that. And then just higher revenue costs for operating in the Pac-12. It's kind of big league stuff, and Boise State has to figure out a way to bridge the gap.
Right. Well, and as we disclose in our story on our website, KIDOtalkradio.com, the non-sports story, Alec handles the sports. I do the business side of it. And really what you have is, thanks to all these concerts and the monster trucks and the bananas, it could have been a lot more. And again, this lawsuit, and again, everything is litigation. The Mountain West could have settled, but they didn't. They took everything to court, so you have additional court costs. It could have been as high as $150 million total, and it was roughly $70 million total, including the penalties to the Pac-12. But there is, and here's another thing, and I know Boise State can't control this, but they moved to this new conference. Supposedly they're going to get more media money, that $2 million or $3 million they would get from their old conference, hopefully as high as $6 or even $10 million. Obviously that revenue helps them, Alec, to compete at whether, we're talking about it here at 580 KIDO or elsewhere. So we still don't know the new TV deal. All we've heard is the bad news so far.
Right. And, there actually is more good news that could be on the way. I haven't heard anything recently about this, but every school has the opportunity to have two patches. Now, we're going to talk about the progressive deal, but every school has the opportunity to have two patches on their jersey that are sponsored by companies.
Alec. You need to let me go to that because I did write that this week about
you
that.
Did.
But, yes. Thank you for reading our website that we so graciously put you on. So, and this is how I show my affection to Alec, and he actually gets it. So we went over 10 of the possible local things. And I know Jeremiah Dickey during the podcast talked a little bit about it. They want someone with the values. But, again, you can look at that story on our website, like you can see Alex, whether it's – and we're not going to – we'll tell you a little. Micron, Simplot, a few others. So you could have a little fun with it. Obviously, they're waiting for that. But the idea of a patch, Alec, let me ask you. You're a local guy. What patch would you like to see on there? Would you like to see Spuddy Buddy? Would you like to see Alec's House of Writing? What would you like to see? What do you think makes sense?
Yeah, I think Micron would actually be the biggest layup that they could get to happen. But, it depends on what Boise State wants to do, and they have to weigh, their different opportunities, because there's also opportunities, the whole conference could want to do one patch with a larger national brand, or they could want to do one patch with a national brand and one one patch with a local brand like Micron. Albertsons would also be another layup because it's already Albertson Stadium, so that would be great. So overall, if you're asking me what I want whatever gets them out of their deficit and allows them to compete with the big dogs. I think one of the more
I don't think a patch is going to do that, but it helps.
I would disagree, actually. No, I would actually disagree. Now, it depends. Like Notre Dame's patch with SoFi is worth $20 million, which is insane. Now, Boise State probably can't get that much out of a company, but there is serious opportunity for just one patch alone to produce a lot of revenue for a school.
I didn't know we were having a debate, Alec.
Well, I came prepared.
Actually, yeah. Well, read the article and then you can talk about that with all due respect. All right. Finally, this Progressive insurance deal.
Yeah, the Progressive insurance deal, that news broke a few days ago. So this year, Boise State will feature a big Progressive logo right underneath the Bronco at midfield. The projected earnings on that are not disclosed, but that is something that Boise State is doing to kind of bring in more money, and I think it's something that, just in this day and age in college football, it's kind of you need to do it. Like, it's either sink or swim, and Boise State is choosing to swim.
Man, I didn't know we would get you in your three-point stance, man. I mean, smacking me around. I'm an old guy, bro. Come on.
Hey, man, it's the big leagues here. This guy get left in the dust, man. The future's now.
This guy means business. Yes. What was that Brian Harsin said? Attack the future. Finally, Oregon. I mean, $60 million. Boise State, maybe. What do you make of this, Alec? $8 million goes to football out of the $10 million, or is it $9 million? What do you make? What do you want to go with here? 8. I know better than to challenge you, so I'm surrendering. Okay. What do you think? $8 million payroll for football, $9 million?
I won't say one way or the other 100%, but we can go with $9 million, I suppose. I think that sounds about right. Football typically is a bigger earner, so yeah.
So, okay, Alec, let me ask the question. So you have $9 million payroll versus a $60 million payroll. How do you compete with that? That'll be your final shot here, big boy.
Well, the short answer is you kind of don't. And that kind of does go back to the recruiting side of things, where it's more about the development and, the little dog in the tall grass kind of story. Because, you just can't compete with it. And especially this year, with the $2 million deficit, Boise State suffering. Oregon is ranked, according to On3, Oregon is ranked 13th most valuable team in the nation. They're worth $1.13 billion. They have the backing of Nike, Now,
hold on for a minute, Alec. Hold on for a minute. And please don't think that I'm disrespecting Alec here. But for those of us that are drinking our coffee or our hot chocolate or what have you, okay, what Alec just said is $1.3 billion, and it could be higher. So you have, your Nike shoes, but $1.3 billion for the athletic program. And then we can debate whether or not we're talking about state funding and all that. But, that's massive. So, Alec, please continue. Sorry to interrupt, but you're going $1.3 billion, and that's the athletic department or the football team? I'm sorry for not paying attention on that one.
That's just that is the entirety of Oregon's athletic department, yes.
Oh, my.
Yeah. Now, with that said, Boise State is capable of giving Oregon a run for their money. We've beaten them twice in years past, and we gave them a good shot a couple years ago when Genty was on the team. So I think it'll be a good game. I don't think that, I think any team is capable of beating any team in the regular season, especially in a week one matchup. I think as far as, the current conversation surrounding college football playoffs, it's kind of becoming a pay-to-win thing here, where it's like you need to have a certain amount of money in on your football team, and you need to be able to bring in transfers. You need to be able to pay the players and get, the best of the best to be able to make a legitimate, deep playoff run, And I think, I'm not to skew the conversation here, but how would you define success for a Boise State football season in 2026? Is it winning the Pac-12 championship? That would be cool. It's the inaugural year for Boise State. Would it be making another college football playoff appearance? We've already done that and we lost. So it depends. And, there's a lot of money surrounding the sport these days. Yeah, $1.13 billion is a lot to compete with. And they're not even the most valuable team in the nation, and Boise State doesn't even rank in the top 60. So and the upside of it is, if Boise State goes over to Autzen and beats the Ducks, it's going to be insane. It's going to be pandemonium. It's going to be one of the best stories of the year, knocking off, a lot of people are projecting them to win it all this year. So, yeah.
Okay. Our friend Alec, catch him on our websites, any town square. He's everywhere. Maybe he'll be at Autzen. Alec, far be it from me to try to go one-on-one with you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Kevin. Have a good day.
Thank you. Big fan of that guy means business, man. Debating and smacking the old man around. Gee whiz. My goodness gracious. But do appreciate Alec joining us, Cindy. He means business. You can read his stories as well as any of our other great locally produced stories from Town Square Media on any of our brother stations. Everybody goes sister stations. What's wrong with saying brother stations, right? Brother. Thank you to our friends at Beacon Plumbing for sponsoring this portion of the program. We'll tell you about them next. Kevin Miller, 580 KIDO. Fox News Now, 580 KIDO. Whew. We talk about Boise State and the blue and everything else. 40 years ago, maybe you've been to your high school reunion. Maybe you haven't. I never thought I would live long enough but my 40 years for me. I probably missed the reunion. They probably didn't miss me. But I would miss you. But regardless of that, 40 years of the blue, and just amazing. I don't know if it's good or not that we live in this money age when we're talking about college football and the cost of doing business and how antiquated it is. We are waiting for Mayor Chadwick to call in, and we will speak with him. And you're going to go, Mayor Chadwick, why are we talking about Mayor Chadwick? Well, big news when we're talking about transportation in Star. We're going to talk about that. I know he's trying to call in because he's texting me. So we try to get everybody on. We'll get others on in a minute. So we asked the mayor to please hang on. We'll get to him. And, of course, we'll take more of your calls at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, whether we're talking about Star or CUNA or anywhere else. Transportation, congestion are all big, major issues, and how to deal with the growth. And again, we've done many shows from Star. We love Star. Don't tell anybody right now. I'm in Star right now doing the shows. So we'll get with him and we'll talk with him and everything else as we go along. Okay, let's see. Hopefully the mayor will call back, please. And we will try to get a hold of him. There we have it. All right. We'll go to Mayor Trevor Chadwick joining us now at 580 KIDO. I talk about Alec blocking and tackling, and, we just do our very best, and we appreciate that. Mayor, are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Well, thank you for joining us. And so I get this social media post from Mrs. Miller. And you're actually driving around this new interchange in Star, your city that you serve, at 4 or 5 in the morning, and then you're posting that remain calm, all is well. If that's not dedication, sir, I don't know what is.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we had to make sure after last week's issues that we had, I wanted to make certain that the lane shifts they did last night were completed, and it was easy to flow and follow and go through the town, I guess, which is very important because things are getting backed up so far here in our community.
Well, and obviously you're like the quarterback. You get the credit and you get the blame. So, our girl, and by the way, apologize for making this about Star, but our friend Sally, the snow cone lady, she's only got today and tomorrow. And Sally told me the changes were going to happen a couple weeks ago, and for people that may be coming to Star, may not be coming to Star, going to Middleton, Emmett, Eagle, Meridian, what's happening that you're out there driving around at 5 in the morning to make sure things are good to go, sir?
Well, we have the that big Highway 16 44 project happening right now, where they're putting Highway 16 is going to have an overpass over Highway 44. And so there was a lot of road realignments that had to be done so they can start working on that bridge over there. And they've been working on it for the last 6-7 months to get these alignments completed. And it's a major thoroughfare. It's the only east-west route north of the Boise River. And, of course, everybody out of Canyon County and out of Emmett drive through that intersection on top of Star going into Boise. And so there's a lot of vehicle traffic that hits that. And so it creates a lot of challenges when we have a lot of road work happening in that area.
Yeah, and then the backups and the schmackups and everything else. So what is the overall plan, sir? I've got a guy who has never been to Star, and I'm going to meet him later on today. So what is the plan with this new interchange, if you will?
Well, the new interchange is going to allow everybody to access Highway 16, and Highway 16 is going to act like a freeway all the way to Interstate 84. So instead of taking us 40 minutes to get to Interstate 84, it'll take us about 6 or 7 minutes when this is all completed, and it's going to allow a lot more mobility in our area of the valley. And on top of that, we're able to work with ITD to get the last mile segment here in Star to get widened from 2 lanes to 4 lanes, which was a bottleneck. And they just bid that out this week, and they're going to start the construction on that in November, the end about the same time as the overpass is done. And so when that's all completed, you're going to see a whole new mobility, I guess not mobility, a whole new traffic pattern through Star that's going to flow a lot smoother than it ever has.
Boy, what do you make of that? I mean, you're running a city, but now you're like, you had to go, from what I understand, you had to come in off the bench to make sure that funding occurred, that happened.
Right, yeah, because of the state funding cuts last year, and they cut money out of ITD's budget. ITD cut a lot of projects around the state, and that one was, Highway 44 was one of them that was cut. And so when they had a board meeting in Pocatello, I drove out there to let them know that we needed to maintain that funding. And thanks to our District 3 engineer, Jason, and Julie, our District 3 board member, they helped me push along to get that project funded again. And in fact, that bid that went out, I think it was just a couple of days ago that a bid, ended up coming in at half the cost of what they anticipated it to cost, because you were able to leverage the current project that was there, right, for mobility, for mobilizing on site with the contractor and stuff that ended up winning it. So it worked out for everybody to get it done. It cost half the amount, and it's just going to create mobility for everybody from Canyon County to Ada County on this side of the valley.
That's pretty wild. Mayor Trevor Chadwick joining us of Star here at 580 KIDO. You know, the last time you and I talked, you said all these businesses are coming in, buildings are going up. Can you define what that's about? I mean, everything's growing, and we're not going to be negative, but I mean, that's a challenge to manage that growth, and you've been on the forefront of that, sir.
Yeah, it's been a challenge to manage that, and the infrastructure is the biggest key. I mean, the biggest complaints you see in our area is the traffic, right? It's the increased traffic that you see from the housing, and we're working on that through both ITD and ACHD. And with these improvements on the roads, that just helps our commercial base as well to build. And we got a lot of commercial entities that are coming in here in the next year as well. You see, if you drive up and down Highway 44, you see a lot of buildings being built right now for the different businesses that will be here. So it's kind of cool to see. And it's opening up opportunities for locals. I've talked to a couple of local folks that are going to be able to open up some shops and stuff in some of these locations, and that's exciting to see.
No, I agree with you on that. Now, here's something that, and you know, you've gotten a lot of coverage on this, rightfully so, but what was it like to open up that new elementary school years after opening up the new middle school? And There's something about schools that make us all feel like kids.
It does. It was awesome to get this new Independence Elementary School opened up here in Star. It was much needed on opening day. They already had 620 kids at that school, and there was over 600 kids at Star Elementary. So that shows you how much we needed that. The kids, there was almost 300 kids in Star that were being bussed out into other schools because we didn't have the capacity. The beautiful thing about this elementary school, it was built with 100% state dollars and no property tax dollars. And so that worked out well for everybody here. And then we have another elementary school coming on the Middleton School District side of Star, the Canyon County side of Star, that's going to start building this year to open next year. And that one's actually going to be called Freedom Elementary. And so now we have our independence and our freedom here in the community of Star in our elementary schools.
Well, and then there's the rumor of the next high school. Have you heard anything more about that?
Yeah, so the school, West Ada School District does have land for the high school up there by the middle school. That is going to be an expensive project, and that's going to take some creative financing from West Ada School District in the state of Idaho to figure out how they're going to finance a high school on that. But there is discussion. They know they need another school. They need a high school here in Star, and they need a high school in the south of the interstate. And so who gets the one first, it's hard to say right now on there, but those are not cheap to build. You know, high schools for 1,800 students and stuff like that are not cheap.
A non-political question for our great friend Mayor Trevor Chadwick of Star here at 580 KIDO. So you and former mayor of Eagle, Jason Pierce, used to go to these Little League games all the time. You'd travel.
Yep.
And West Ada showed up very well in the Little League World Series. I couldn't believe, representing the state of Idaho, I'm sitting there watching them on the real ESPN, losing to Washington, but I'm going, man, huge.
It's awesome. And if they see the local kids do so well and this is like the third time in about the last 10 years that we've had West Valley represented at the Little League Northwest Regional World Series. And they almost pulled it off. They were at the championship game in the Northwest thing and almost pulled that off. And if anybody's watching the Little League World Series, that team from I think it's Tacoma, Washington, that beat West Valley, won their first game against the Southwest, which is usually really strong in the Little League World Series. So that says a lot about how this program is going here and how good these kids are around our area.
Yeah, no, I loved watching your road trips with former Mayor Pierce. So, Mayor Chadwick, for those that don't live in Star, let's be sensitive. Growth is everywhere. I was talking to a gentleman that hasn't been to Star. I'm going to show him around today. He goes, well, I'm impressed with CUNA. I mean, whether it's CUNA, whether it's anywhere in Ada County or the Treasure Valley or the state, growth is happening. You deal with this all the time. You deal with the pain of it. Can you take us into your world of what's being done to try to manage this stuff, sir?
Yeah, we're constantly, I think Star is probably one of the few cities in Idaho that makes adjustments to the plan and code because of the growth, right? I mean, several years ago, you know, and for good reasons, people are moving out of those other areas for a lot of political reasons and coming into the state of Idaho. And with that, you know, we reduced the available density in our community by 40% a few years ago because we know that we can't handle the explosion of growth. You know, if it were to grow at a more normal pace, it would have been fine, but there's no way with the volume of folks that are wanting to come into this area. So we're updating our codes and our comprehensive plan. We work with the developers and stuff to try to get land, like, for instance, that new elementary school on the Middleton side. We were able to get 10 acres of land donated from that development for the elementary school and provide services to that, which saved that or that school district about $5 million by doing that. You know, we required a developer to provide us with land for fire stations. We are getting land for parks, stuff like that through that development process to help with growth, so it's not falling back on the citizens that are here as we grow. And you can't stop the growth in Idaho. It does not. They don't allow you to do that, right? And if you if you try to stop it,
Right.
it doesn't mean it's going to stop. It's going to grow through somebody else. And then you don't have any say as a community on what that's going to look like. And that's a challenge. That's a challenge for all of us that we're dealing with here and especially in the Treasure Valley with the growth in almost every single city that we see around here.
Yeah, no, it's wild on how that continues to roll on. So anything else you would like to share with us, sir? I mean, did you drive around it? I mean, did you obviously at 5 in the morning, it's a little better than it is right now, but I mean, the improvements are going to be noticeable.
Well, even right now, I sat out there at 8 o'clock too, watching the traffic just to make sure it was flowing, right? And the only stops you get is the stoplight at Plummer, and then they flow through. And so that's exactly what you want to see, not the backups to Canada Road that were happening last week, right? Which is almost 1.5 miles, 2 miles of backups because of the some of the weather challenges that we had last week with the lane shifts that they were doing then. So, but I think it's looking good. I drive around often. I'll go in the morning, check out different stuff. I'll go in the afternoon. I'll go in the evening just to kind of see what that flow looks like. Because in a couple of years, you know, we after Highway 44 is done, we're going to have our major north-south route, Star Road, is going to get widened from Highway 44 to Highway 2026. And that's a major $80 million project right there. And it took a lot of advocating to get that on the books now instead of 10 years from now because of the growth that we've seen today.
No, I'm with you. You think the people in Emmett are going to be happy? I mean, the growth is going out to Emmett.
Yeah, Highway 16, the Highway 16 completion changes the whole dynamic of the city of Emmett and the Jim County, and the growth is going to head out that way. You're also going to see growth coming in our smaller communities, and so the state needs to figure out how to fix some of the challenges we've been facing with funding critical infrastructure, because that growth is going to happen, and those guys are going to get caught with serious problems in some of these smaller communities. And they can look at Star and see what we've been doing over the last 6 years with this growth and try to come up with a better plan, right? I mean, people are moving here and they get frustrated with the growth, and I totally get it. I've been here all my stinking life, and I've seen it, right? I met my wife here. I met my wife here at 93 when there was maybe 400 or 500 people here in the community of Star, and the growth happens, you know. But we got to figure out ways to fund the critical infrastructure without putting it on the backs of the existing homeowners. That's the key of that, right? And so I think we're pretty unique in doing stuff like that here in the city of Star and trying to find those solutions.
No, I'm with you. We could go on and on, but we appreciate you.
We could go for hours.
Yes, sir. We appreciate you, Mayor Chadwick. It's been too long. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we got space for you to move your radio show out here permanently, too, by the way.
Well, let's talk.
Let's talk.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
All right, you too. Thank you.
Our great friend, Mayor Chadwick. Perhaps we'll just move the show permanently to Star. That'd be a great commute. Coming up next, he's warming up in the bullpen, Tea Party Bob. But first, 580 KIDO. Stop Freaking Call Beacon today. We go to Tea Party Bob, who joins us now from the Gem State Patriot. Good morning, sir.
Oh, good morning, Mr. Murrow. I'm going to have to cut it a little short since we only have a few minutes here, but it seems like your mayor has his head on straight and is doing all the right things, from learning from the mistakes of all the other clowns that we have had in Meridian and Boise and Nampa and previously in Caldwell. So God bless the man. But let me tell you something. 16 is going to become the new 10 mile. I assure you of that, because that's where all the growth is going to come from. Let me say a few words about, where's the beef? I live in cattle country up here in Adams County, and actually lived on a cattle farm for a couple of years. And the herds have gotten a lot smaller. And let's be honest, let's not blame this all on the people who pack the meat. Let's blame some of it on Mother Nature and the Biden era, where there were droughts and the cost of feed, fuel, and fertilizer and borrowing interest rates made some pretty high numbers. And the herds, they dwindled. They dwindled quite rapidly. And you also had the restrictions on Mexican cattle with the screwworm. But much of this, again, was a byproduct of either Joe Biden or natural incidences. The case of the four meat packers rigging prices, they had some merit as they tried to increase their margins between 2015 and 2020 by suppressing what they paid ranchers. But again, that's a case that's still in the courts. We don't know what actually is going to happen there. But what is interesting is cattle ranching is a significant part of Idaho's economy. In fact, we have more cattle in this state than we have people. So that's a $2.9 billion revenue producer for us. So it's important. And just a few words about flock cameras. You know, as you know, Washington is now seriously discussing whether flock cameras are a violation of our constitutional right. And it looks like the legislation may be coming shortly that's going to put restrictions on them. The problem has been a significant misuse and control of the cameras. And most of this, telling us that they are capturing a lot of criminals and that it's helping in criminal activity suppression. There's no statistical data that actually says this works. And I see this as just another intrusion into our privacy here as U.S. citizens. The world we live in is full of cameras. We have Ring cameras on doorbells. We have cameras in the stores. We have cameras outside the stores.
Canada, and we've got Lars. Not a bad big three.
Well, you think so? Well, we can try to make the best of it. I mean, here we are coming up to the end of August, still at war with Iran in some form, but it appears the president says we're getting oil through the Strait of Hormuz. So maybe we're winning at this point. Iran is going to be on its lips financially. It's going to be in trouble. And I think that's where Donald Trump intended to put them. It just took longer than he expected.
Of course, you as the political watchdog, you have to take a look and think to yourself, what, if any, impact this is going to have on the midterms as we get ready for, another shot at history, if you will.
Well, I certainly hope that voters are smarter than simply saying there is some discomfort because of high prices. There was discomfort because of high prices during all of Joe Biden. And I think the difference this time is the mainstream media, the legacy media, has been shouting the alarm the whole time, whereas they did not do that during Biden. Do you remember when Biden just blew off questions about inflation, saying, "Oh, it's transitory. It'll only last a little while." Yeah, it only lasted for 4 years until he was out and Trump was in. So he was able to lie to the media, and the media effectively lied to the public. So what do you do when you're not getting the straight story?
Well, and that's the challenge. The Republicans aren't only fighting the Democrats, but they're fighting the liberal media. And
do you want, if you're a tried and true Democrat voter, some of the people who'd call your show, and God bless them, but they'd say, I've voted Democrat my whole life. I'm going to vote Democrat again. Are you really going to vote for a party that's bringing socialism to America? And this is not just a theoretical issue or an issue of what do you call the kind of politics we practice. It's how you do government. And it's about the expectations of the people who vote for a government that's there to serve, but only what we absolutely need, and leave the rest of it to citizens. America affords you tremendous opportunity and liberty. So it's what you do with it. And yet there seem to be a number of people today who say, I don't really want to work. I want somebody else to pay my bills. You know what? I'm not interested in paying their bills. I pay my own bills. They should pay their own bills. And if you are truly somebody who is, say, disabled, you're disabled physically, you're disabled mentally, America is a generous enough country to be willing to help pay the bills or pay all of the bills for people who are truly that. But there are a bunch of people who seem to want to have the government pay for just about everything. And in fact, right now, one of the biggest stories that's, because I watch all three states, Oregon, Washington, and Idaho, in Oregon, they're saying, we've got all these people on Medicaid. Do you know how many people are on Medicaid in the state of Oregon? It's basically one person in three. Now, do you really think in a prosperous country like ours that the government has to provide the medical insurance for 1/3 of the entire population. But even if you accept that that's needed, I don't think it is, then you say, well, who is it that's about to get kicked off of the Medicaid program? Not Medicare. Medicare is for the old, Medicaid's for the poor. Who's getting kicked off? Able-bodied, working-class Americans with no kids at home and no physical or mental disability. And you say, hold on, you're working age, okay, you're 18 to 60, and so you would be expected to work. And do you have a job? No, I don't have a job. And what does Medicaid want you to do to qualify for government, meaning taxpayer-funded health insurance? They want you to work at least 20 hours a week. Full-time is considered 40 hours a week. Kevin, people like you and I work 60 hours a week. But if we could ask them to work 20 hours a week, and they say, no, that's unfair, that you want me to work. Well, I don't think it's unfair at all. Do you, Kevin?
No, not at all.
And so if you say to those people, if you're not willing to work 20 hours a week, either be in a job, in a training program that leads to a job, or seeking a job, they'll even allow you to do volunteer work 20 hours a week. Some of these people are saying, I'm not willing to do any of that. Well, Kevin, I guess I look at it this way. If you look at America like a family, and say you have a family member who's fallen on hard times, lost his job, let's say he doesn't have any small kids, he doesn't have any dependents, and he comes to you and your family and says, hey, Kevin, I need a place to stay. And you say, okay, you can come and stay with us. We'll help you out till you get back on your feet. But we expect you to get back on your feet as quickly as you can. We expect you to find a job. We expect you to produce some income. We expect you to be able to pay your bills. And you say your brother-in-law is the person we're talking about. I don't know if it is. I don't want to make it too personal. And he says, no, I'm not willing to work. I just want to stay at your house and eat food from your refrigerator and watch your TV. What would most families say to a deadbeat like that?
Time to go.
Exactly. And I think it's actually disabling. They talk about enabling people, who are, say, drug addicts, and you enable them by continuing to give them money that you know they're going to spend on drugs or other things people do to enable. I think it's disabling to take an able-bodied person who could be working and say, no, you don't need to work, honey. We'll pay your bills. I think that is disabling. Well, and after a number of years of that, they won't be capable of working at all. But
well, and our great friend Lars Larson joining us here at 580 KIDO. Then you throw in, I guess that dovetails into the illegals that, Americans won't work, so we have the illegals here, and, the president closes the borders, and people are mad because a lot of businesses were dependent on illegal labor, including those in Idaho, Oregon, and Washington.
Yeah, and what do you say, Kevin? I mean, look, I love farmers. I have a lot of friends who are farmers. But if you are a farmer and you say, the only way my business can exist is if I use illegal labor. What if you said that about any other business? What if KIDO said the only way we can run our radio station is if we operate illegally? Well, what is that saying? You can only run your business if you operate illegally. You have a store and you sell things, and people say, but you're selling stolen goods. You say, that's the only way my business can succeed. Would you want a business like that to succeed if the only way it could work is if it operated on some illegal basis, stealing its goods, stealing its labor, whatever it is? And you say it's too expensive to pay Americans to do that work. What are you telling the rest of the country? You want to have all the wonderful things that come with being in America, but you don't want to pay the cost of operating legitimately?
No, I would agree with you. Of course, we'll never get that from the media.
No, probably not. By the way, do you know that Hillary Clinton is said to be planning Bill's funeral? And he's not dead yet. I think it's kind of rude, but there you go.
I think he just turned 80.
Yeah, he did. I mean, he can probably live a while. He looks a little rough. I mean, there are plenty of 80-year-old celebrities who had lots and lots of experience with drugs and alcohol and everything else. But the Gateway Pundit is reporting that Hillary wants a traditional service at Washington National Cathedral. And I guess one of the questions has been raised is he's a Baptist. I don't know if you can do that or not, but there you go. And now apparently they're looking at how to make the final plans for Bill's exit.
Wow. Well, he's a rough 80. Had a lot of miles on the 80.
He has a lot of miles. Although, that's what happens. He spent most of his life living in government housing.
That he did.
He did.
So
he was Attorney
Lars,
General, then he was governor. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Lars, I'd ask you what you did this weekend, but I already know this. But a tale of two weekends, if you will. On one hand, we have the Freedom 250, which was just inspiring, and then you have this WNBA thing where Ennis Freedom goes out and gets thrown out of the game, and one woman's going to beat him up, and I'm like, he's 6'10", 250. I don't think you're going to beat him up. But to me, it was quite a contrast of sporting events and two audiences in America this weekend.
Yeah, and isn't it amazing? He gets thrown out of the game, and what excuse did they use for throwing him out of the game? Because some of the players were harassing him because they knew that he had taken a stance to challenge the WNBA's nonsense about accepting biological males to compete against women. Is that really what the women's NBA is? Because that's what WNBA stands for. So do they stand for making women compete against men?
I don't know what they stand for anymore.
Well, then they should have to stand up and explain what it is that they represent. I mean, they're happy to tell you we should be paid the same as the men. All right, fine. So should you also have to tell women that they have to compete against men? I think Ennis Cantor Freedom is making an important point. He's challenged them, saying, okay, I'm available for the draft. What excuse are you going to use not to hire me as a WNBA player? Well, you're a man. Yeah. You've said you're in favor of transgender individuals, and you've also said that the only thing you have to do to define yourself as a transgender individual is to say that you identify as a woman. I identify as a woman. That's what he's saying.
And yet they get all angry with him. They start flipping out, and they're going to get him and all this. I'm like, oh, good luck with that.
You know what? The WNBA is pathetic. Think about what they're doing. Caitlin Clark comes in, and she's a very good basketball player, but she doesn't happen to be black. So then the black players on the other WNBA teams harass her for being good at what she does? Is that really the standard the WNBA stands for? And, one of the sales points they would tell people is don't take your daughters to an NBA game, take them to a WNBA game and see what the opportunities are for them. Well, what are the opportunities? You can bring your daughter to a WNBA game and find out that they would let people play who simply identify as women, even though they're not actually biological women, that they would make their other players be forced to play against biological men. Is that the lesson you're telling your daughters? Is that any really good woman can simply be replaced by a better man? Is that what you're telling your daughters? I wouldn't take my granddaughter anywhere near one of those events. And by the way, what I did this weekend, we poured almost 3 yards of concrete. So that's a lot of bags.
And that's fun for you.
We mixed, and the result is fun. It's not fun when you're picking up. And by the way, yes, I'm a sissy. I pick up 60-pound bags. We don't buy I don't know why anybody buys concrete in 80-pound bags. You're buying the same amount of concrete. It's just that picking up a 60-pound bag is hard enough. Picking up an 80-pound bag is, 30% harder. And we choose to buy the 60-pound bags, and I would imagine that most people do. But who knows? I really don't understand. If you ever see somebody at Home Depot or Lowe's buying 80-pound bags of concrete, ask them, why don't you buy it in 60-pound bags?
We will do that. Our great friend Lars Larson joining us here. Lars, we're going to get you out on this one. I'm sure you covered it, and if you did and I missed it, I apologize. But one of these viral moments from San Diego.
One San Diego man who dressed as Darth Vader during a recent city council meeting while mockingly defending law enforcement's use of flock surveillance cameras.
Darth Vader? Emperor is a fan of Flock, and we must continue utilizing Flock technologies so that we can follow and surveil the rebel scum. I need this so I can stalk my ex-girlfriend.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. Well, we know that flock cameras have been used illegally by people in police agencies, and those people should be either disciplined or fired, depending on the level of the offense. Think about it this way, Kevin. There are lots of things that you could do as a cop that are illegal to do, but that would be useful in, say, settling a beef with your ex-girlfriend, with a buddy of yours who you're angry with. There are lots of things police officers could do and it's wrong. And so when they catch them, they should be punished. My question is, why did they put up the flock cameras to begin with? And the answer was because the police say that when there's a stolen car, the car gets spotted very quickly by the flock camera system. And if dispatch can send a responding unit in to that, you'll end up catching the people with the stolen car very quickly. And these days, Kevin, I mean, if people are thinking, well, people steal stolen cars to either chop them up or to keep them for a period of time, the police will tell you that an awful lot of the reason for stolen cars is criminals will steal a car and go do an armed robbery, steal a car and rob a 7-Eleven or a plaid pantry or whatever. They will steal a car and go do a drug deal. They'll steal a car and go do a burglary because they don't want to be identified, so a stolen car gives them a certain amount of cover. If you can knock down the theft of cars, you can knock down some of those other crimes as well. Federal Way, Washington did exactly that. They've now seen a 30% reduction in stolen cars, but they've also had a gigantic reduction in armed assaults, armed robberies, and the like. So then the question is, but these cameras, they take pictures, yes, in public places where you have no expectation of privacy. And, Kevin, I'll tell you, probably 40 years ago, I would go on ride-alongs with the cops. And one night I was going on a ride-along with an officer I hadn't been in his car before, and he was looking at this sheet of paper, and he was really studying it up and down. But it was one sheet of paper, and I said, "What's that?" And he goes, "It's a hot sheet." And I said, "So it's all the stolen cars that have been reported in the last 24 hours?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm kind of getting the plate numbers in my mind, so that as we're driving down the road, one of the nights I went on a ride along, it may not have been that night, but one of the nights, all of a sudden he just flips on the lights and siren, wheels the car around right in the middle of a big boulevard and starts going the other direction fast. And we pulled the car over. It was a stolen car. And how did he know it was a stolen car? Because he remembered the plate numbers off the hot sheet. Now, human beings can do that imperfectly. The camera can do it pretty flawlessly. So then the question is that a legitimate reason to try to identify cars because they've been reported stolen? Well, and will they make mistakes? Yes. And when they make mistakes, there should be an abject apology, et cetera. And will some officers maybe try to use the flock cameras to, as one officer apparently did hundreds of times, to track his ex-girlfriend or ex-wife? Yeah, he may, but then you can punish or fire the cop for doing that. And make it really clear to your police officers, do not use the flock camera data for anything but legitimate uses, or we will fire you. And make that really clear from the get-go. What do you think?
I agree. Lars, anything you'd like to share with us, what you're working on for this week?
No, we're not pouring any more concrete for a couple of weeks because it's going to be too hot. But we will be eventually, and then we'll knock it off before fall.
Are you sore?
Yeah, guaranteed. I mean, come on. I'm coming up next year. I'm going to be, what am I going to be next year? 68 next year. So, yeah, I'm sore. Bit sore.
Wow.
Huh?
I had you at 58, Lars.
Oh, no. Next year is my 50. This is my 51st year in radio. Next year will be 52.
Oof. Just getting started.
Just getting started, Kevin. Still going strong.
Yes, you are. Thank you, Lars. We really appreciate you, sir.
Take care, Kevin. Bye-bye.
Our great friend Lars Larson pouring concrete at 67. Wow. Kevin Miller, 580-KIDO. Phone number's here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Do want to send well wishes to our friend Eric, who is homesick today. Eric Heffernan on Twitter. Appreciate Eric, who is such a great supporter of this program. Eric, thank you very much. Hope you're getting well, and just shared online that he was enjoying the conversation between myself and Lars Larson. A couple things going on, and it comes down to two tales of America. Which America would you like to be a part of? The America that celebrated the greatness of our country, the greatness of the Capitol, or what you're seeing with the WNBA? We'll get that in a minute, but first, a little breaking news this morning from Fox.
New Truth Social post regarding tariffs on Canada. It says, quote, on January 1st, 2027, tariffs on all cars, trucks, both large and small, automotive parts, and steel will be increased to 50%. Built in the U.S., and there are zero tariffs. Canada will be treated like a state no longer on trade and in other ways.
Pretty wild stuff when you think about it. So coming up, better buy those trucks now. It's an interesting move that the president is taking a look at because he wants to capture the market. And it's the exact opposite of the Clinton-Obama, and I would say Bush deal, where they gave breaks to large corporations, creating these international entities that had no loyalty to America, had no loyalty to this country, had no loyalty to the automobile industry. What they had loyalty to was to themselves. And it wasn't like they passed it along to the workers. They passed it along to themselves. And I don't even think they passed it along to the shareholders because, again, the automobile industry is always very, very challenged. But the president, again, saying, okay, Canada, we're gonna roll, and it will hurt Canada more than it hurts us. But Canada has decided that they want to decouple. They want to do their own thing. They would, pretty much want to get in bed with the Chinese or whoever else, the anti-American coalition. So we'll continue to update you, but you have until January to buy that new car, if you will, unless everybody's going to build stuff here, which would be great. I still don't understand why our commercial drug business, most of the drugs that we get, come from China, come from India. Why not in America? I mean, you take a look at some of the ads, whether it's here at 580 KIDO on Fox News, or you take a look at anywhere else, and you have these great American companies. Like on Fox, you got the guy with the gloves. No, not the ice shocking gloves, but you got the guy with the grill gloves. Now, does anybody really need the grill gloves? But you go, wow, that's kind of a good idea. I'm going to grill. I want to clean my grill. I want to do it without, the Brussels and the getting steel, whatever in my meat. Nobody likes that in their meat, so you scrape it and you're good to go. Or the cotton people, from Alabama, and it's very expensive. Could you imagine whether it's, some type of, and it would be a website, but all drugs made in America, and maybe you start with all drugs made in North America. I mean, we're sending people at least past the moon. We've sent people to the moon. Why in the world could we not get our prescription drugs here and just start with that? So the president, with this big tariff things, you're going to have people. It will probably be on the local news if I know the local media. Trump's tariffs impact on Idaho, and then they're going to have a farmer who's going to be very concerned about his livelihood, as we all are, or somebody else, a rancher. Well, I sell this to Canada. And by the way, watch out for housing costs, those of you that are even thinking about buying a home, because we use a lot of Canadian lumber. Here we have all this wood. We have Reno burning down. We had the big grass fire that is almost under control, if not under total control. We've had all this loss. We have all this wood, and the Canadians send us the wood. It makes no sense. I would hope, and maybe it's time to pray, that Spokane, Reno, and all the things that are happening right now that, in my opinion, are avoidable, that these tragedies will spur action and people will actually start taking care of this so we don't have these oppressive, insane western wildfires. And, of course, the air has been horrible this summer. More coming up next, 580 KIDO. safety on the roads. We always like hearing what Sean Duffy has to say. This from Fox News Sunday that you can hear every Sunday at 580 KIDO right after Gun Talk.
Covered a number of these tragic cases where people have been driving these large trucks, these large vehicles, and either they're here illegally, they don't speak or read or understand English, or in some other way they've gotten a license they shouldn't have. You have started a crackdown here. You've asked for a lot of information, 17 million or so different people, the licensing information. You've got 22 states now suing over that. I want to read from their complaint. They say it's now clear that the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration has not been candid about its purposes in seeking the data, and in fact intends to share the data with DHS for immigration enforcement purposes. They go on from there to say that there could be action taken against people or against the states based on information that may not be it may be incomplete, it may be erroneous. So what is the plan? Are you planning to share this with DHS? How do you respond?
So my plan is I want to make sure that if I have drivers driving an 80,000-pound big rig on an American road endangering an American citizen, I want them off the American road. They don't deserve to have a license. They should not have a license. And if these states, by the way, this is the tell. If they say we're concerned that DOT would share this with DHS, they must know that the data they have is data that shows that they have issued driver's licenses to illegal immigrants. We feel very comfortable that that is what they've done. We want to make sure they revoke those licenses. So I want well-trained drivers who meet the rules of DOT, which means they can speak English, they're in the country lawfully, and if they're not, and by the way, they didn't go to a sham school, we shut down 8,000 truck driving schools that basically you pay $800 or $1,000. They have no curriculum, they have no trucks, and you just get a certificate that you pass the driving course. Listen, it's been the Wild West in this industry. We're going to crack down and make sure it's safe for the American people. What's hard for us, though, is I don't have like an FBI. I don't have a massive force of law enforcement. I have to work with the states and the state patrol. And if they don't partner with us, we have tools. We'll pull money. We can go so far as to pull their ability to issue commercial driver's license, and we will do that if they don't cooperate.
We'll watch.
There we have it, Sean Duffy with our own Shannon Bream. Kevin Miller here at 580 KIDO. I'm sitting there thinking about this and a lot of questions. We have a lot of people that drive in Idaho, drive professionally in Idaho, whether it's the big rigs or the small rigs or whatever else rigs, if you will. The bottom line, safety on the roads. And then we take a look at where we are today and what our state is doing. Is our state doing enough about it? Is our state doing enough to keep our people safe? I think I had somebody call in one day and make some pretty concrete allegations saying, oh, yeah, this goes on all the time. Nobody checks anything. And, let's be proactive. I give it to Sean Duffy. I give it to the Transportation Department. And people could go, well, Donald Trump has done it, and Donald Trump is bad. Think of, again, keeping the roads safe should be nonpartisan, should be something that most of us, all of us, can get behind. Think about closing the border, should be something that we all get behind. Getting rid of fraud should be something that we can all get behind. And yet, here you have 22 states, the libs, suing to block the federal government from accessing the commercial driver's license records so they can legally remove people that are here illegally. Never mind the people that are not qualified to be on the roads, but just do it anyway. But then they can't speak the language. They can't do this. I've said this for years. And what is it, 26 different languages that you can take the driver's test in? I don't understand this. At 580-5436, 580-KIDO, I still do not understand this at all. Why in the world would you ever allow someone to get a vehicle that can't read the road signs? Maybe you've been, in the military. Maybe you're an international traveler. Maybe you're something. And then you sit back and then you go somewhere and maybe you have an Uber, maybe you have a Lyft, maybe you have a whatever. But imagine trying to drive a little vehicle or just any type of vehicle without knowing what those signs mean. What does stop mean? Right? You know what I mean? So, again, this is just simple, basic common sense. By the way, if you're just tuning in, you miss any portion of this program, you can go to our YouTube channel. And, people love the YouTube, if you will. But I had a chance to just peruse that. And there are a lot of things, because of copyright issues, we've had to take down. But there are other issues that just amazing to share with the 17 years that we've been together. I would have to say, that YouTube channel has about 3 of them, and it would actually 4. It would be Promote Our Schools, Secure Our Future, where we would go to the schools and just find out what the good things about education and the bad things, but we loved that. Obviously, Kevin in the Kennel, supporting the West Valley Humane Society, where we took the show, lived in the kennel. And again, it wasn't just like what most people do, and what I do now is you're there all day. No, I stayed at night inside the dog shelter, the animal shelter, by myself in Canyon County. Then we move on to from Boise to Baghdad, Idaho to Iraq and back, if you will, where we went to Iraq. And then it's funny, I see a lot bigger Kevin Miller actually over the crossed swords in Iraq and profiling the great work of the 116th Combat Cavalry Brigade, the second largest deployment in state history, where we were the only media outlet in the state, in the region, to go there, to be embedded with them. And, not much gray, just a lot of, auburn, strawberry, blondish red hair there. But fascinating to go back to that. So if you're looking for something to do, you can take a look and listen to every show that we have here. And then you could take a look at just some of the things that we've done. And obviously Miller's Mission, you could see the first Miller's Mission from the old days with our YouTube channel. It's kind of like watching KIDO Classics, if you will. And instead of saying KIDO Talk Radio, I say KIDOAM.com. It's funny how the day has evolved. Speaking of evolved, we are expecting the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, to make an announcement probably about 11 o'clock our time, 1 o'clock Eastern, concerning what is the economic D-Day. They're calling it the toughest sanctions in history. The Trump administration says the economic campaign is intended to reduce the need for another military offensive. The Iranians have said, we're not scared of you. We're not going to take it. We're going to hit back. They say their response will be devastating. If you wonder what the Iranian currency is, it's called the rial. It has fallen to a record low of roughly 2.02 million to the dollar in the open market. So now we're using economic pressure, and the media has done us a grave disservice, if you will. And the grave disservice that the media has done is saying that the American military has failed to win. I'm going to blow that theory up for you and defend the military in a minute. But first, like your favorite fast food place, we live to serve, eggs over easy, mashed potatoes. It's comfort food for the soul. 580 KIDO. We go to Lee Joe, who joins us now. Lee Joe, always a pleasure to have you with us. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. As usual, multiple subjects which one might comment on, but let's just quickly discuss Lars Larson's comment that flock cameras just help the efficiency of the police, that they're a great help to the community, that blah, blah, blah. All the stuff that the flock company would like you to regurgitate so that you can just happily give up your rights, because that's expected in Idaho, that you give up your rights. The flock camera is the government searching you without a warrant every time it monitors you. Okay, it's looking in your car, it's looking at who's driving, it's looking at what you're doing, where you're going. It's an end to your right to travel, to your freedom to travel. It's the government knows, the government will tell you, and I'm endlessly seeing the flock camera, enforcement cops coming to some person's house and saying, oh, no, we've got you 100%. Some jerkwad of a cop, more than happy to violate individual rights just telling people and bullying them and, not going through any due process, basically saying confess or you're going to jail. And, the due process is gone. And we're supposed to sit here and accept this is the new normal. The dude in the Darth Vader outfit that testified in front of his city council, he's right. This is the police state just coming down closer and closer. This is a violation of your rights. Lars's little argument about, it's for the greater good. That's just communism. That's just socialism. You know the place that doesn't have flock cameras? Boise. Why is that? I don't, maybe it's Republican lobbyists that work best, that work for flock. Law and order, law enforcement, go, 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 rah, rah, stick them all in jail. Those guys, maybe they only work with Republicans, and maybe the Democrats are the ones that have some common sense about giving the police too much authority.
Well, maybe they have their own version of it. We don't know about it. Maybe they have the secret flock cameras, if you will.
There are a lot of different brands of flock camera, but I did search. I was wondering what if Boise had any of that, but they don't. And so apparently it's a strategy of flock to sell to Republican law and order jurisdictions, and it's working well for them. It's not working good for us as individuals with our rights. And you may have a different opinion, but it's as obvious as the nose on my face that it's a violation of due process, and it's also warrantless searches, and it's just plain that's what it is. But if the corporate socialists and everyone else wants it to happen, it's going to happen. It has nothing to do with the words that are written on old parchment. That's all fungible. It just depends on what your latest whim of the day is, and today's whim is you all get to be monitored. You all need to get your ankle bracelet on, basically, which is exactly what that is. It's your ankle bracelet without your ankle bracelet. It's ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous.
Well, I wondered if anybody was going to take issue with what Lars said.
Well, just one of us. Just the one that kind of had this idea that the Constitution means something. It doesn't, obviously. But, somebody's got to talk about it, pretend like it's still something, or else we'd all just be sitting here worshiping the empire, which many, many, many people do. Sit and worship the empire and hope for greater government and a different result. And that whole, the argument is that we have to hire less cops if we have these cameras. Well, that's not the job of government. When we fail to have the law get enforced and we fail to follow the law, that's a cultural problem. And that's where we're going. We're going to the place where, whatever you feel like, that's the way it is. That's fine. And so in that kind of a culture, we're going to end up with flock cameras, yeah. But I'm just putting in my two little cents that don't count for nothing. But a flock camera,
they count for something here.
Well, thanks, Kevin. I just, Chandler got me a Brad Little sticker so I can fit in. I'm going to put one on my car so I keep my head down and,
Well, hold on. Welcome to the club, by the way. Welcome to the club.
Yeah. So the flock cameras identify me as one of theirs.
Sure.
And, yeah, exactly. So this Skynet so that Skynet doesn't immediately act upon me.
We get we get Tea Party Bob, and life is going to be great.
Yeah, maybe we can all avoid the Terminator just another day or two longer, as long as we give up a few more rights. It'll be fine. Don't worry.
Lee Joe, thank you for the call. Kevin Miller, 580-KIDO. Economic D-Day. The president is bringing the pain. Also, the future of the Old State Saloon and the Idaho coffee guy who told the pro-life people to get out and compare them to the KKK. He says he didn't, but if you listen to the video that we played a gazillion times, he has. Here's one. Would you support punishing countries that continue to buy Iranian oil, even if doing so raises American energy prices? So this is really what's going to happen today. Here we have the president, Scott Bessent, just moments from now, will say we're going to make them feel the pain. And this is what happens when you find out who your friends are. If you're the Chinese, do you say, well, we want some grace with America, so we're going to cut off the Iranians? If you're Putin can't cut off anybody. But, Russian oil, all those things, is it time to sit back and you're going to find out who your friends are. Like I said, the president has promised that this economic D-Day will take a look at the impact it will have on the mullahs. But if you have the guns, that's the beauty of America. Sadly, in Iran, those people don't have any weapons. Sadly, in Iran, those people don't have the ability to become free. The mullahs, the shmullahs, the IRG, they've got the guns. Even though their currency is collapsing, they're going to face the toughest sanctions they've ever faced. Now, the Turanians are saying they're going to retaliate when they're, going at power plants and everything else. And what the Democrats and the media have portrayed, unfortunately, is this situation where they say the military can't get the job done. No, the military can get the job done and could get the job done, but we are the most friendly, the most humanitarian, the most forgiving country on God's green earth. And because we are forgiving, because we are not like the terrorist slugs that we fight, because we offer the ability to disagree with the government, because we do all of these things, we will not bring the full war machine to the Iranians. And not that I'm advocating it, but you could talk about, that we haven't damaged bridges. We haven't damaged the water plants. We haven't damaged other infrastructure. That they always label that would be war crimes. So it's not like the U.S. military is failing. But if you've ever been in combat, or you've covered this program, or you watch a news program, what is it? The ROE, rules of engagement. Our rules of engagement prevent us from acting savagely in an inhumane way, where the Iranians don't care. So to say that we have failed militarily, not true. Not true at all. The bottom line here is that we choose not to go deeper. By the way, if you're wondering what's going on in the Strait, let's get the very latest from our own Trey Yanks at 580-KIDO.
Reports indicate that vessels crossing out of the Strait of Hormuz are up 400% over the past 2 weeks. This comes as the United States Navy is overseeing other vessels in the Persian Gulf that have millions of barrels of crude oil on board through a safer passage to the south of the Strait. In the backdrop, there is an ongoing U.S. naval blockade. Fresh sanctions are expected for Iran next week.
If Trump decides to take further action, our response, our retaliation, will be seismic. First, we will tell all neighboring countries and countries around the world not to join the United States in its economic war. Any country that takes part in imposing economic restrictions on us will be regarded as an enemy.
Just really an iconic superstar. We've been taking your calls all morning long. Really from Jelly Roll to Miley Cyrus to Kenny Rogers, just again, Whitney Houston, the impact she had. And then not only was she a great star of music, but a great entrepreneur, a great role model, and a movie star. And, we're reflecting on Dolly today, the world mourning this country iconic superstar.
I graduated on a Friday night and headed out on a Saturday morning. And as I make jokes about it with my matching luggage, those 4 paper bags from the same grocery store. I thought, well, I can't be any poorer than I already am. And I'm a girl. I'll find some boy that'll take me to Shoney's. I thought, I'm not going to go hungry. And I'd left 2 boyfriends back home. The last thing I wanted was a boyfriend because I was headed out for my big career.
2 boyfriends?
Well, I've always had more than 2, but I always had 1 or 2 or 3 or 4.
All right.
There was a laundromat down from my little apartment where I was going to be staying. So the very day I go down to the laundromat, this good-looking man just drives by, and he says something like, well, where are you going to get sunburned out here? And I say something stupid like, well, what's it to you? We start talking, and 2 years later, we married, and we're still married, and that was that.
You just go walking in with your dirty clothes, and you walk out with
Carl Dean.
They remained together for close to 6 decades, and the whole time, Carl Dean was fiercely private and remained out of public view.
What's the secret?
Stay gone. Actually, there's a lot of truth in not being together all the time, but he's a very independent spirit, too. He's a country boy. He loves to work on his tractors, and he was in asphalt paving. He likes the privacy, and he would never in a million years do an interview.
Oh, gosh. Well, you guys eloped, right?
Well, we were in love, and my mom went with me. She'd made me a little white dress, and I carried my little white Bible with a little flower on top.
Once Dolly got to Nashville, things really took off for her, and she'd record her first studio album in 1968.
My first RCA album was a song called Just Because I'm a Woman. My mistakes are no worse than yours, just because I'm a woman. It's about men, wanting to use all these women, and then when they want to get married, they want a virgin, and they want to do this and that, and they think, oh, if you've been with someone, I don't want you, even if I love you. But it was a #1 song here, and it was one of the first. I was just a victim of a man that let me down. I graduated on a Friday night and headed out on a...
There we have it, remembering the great Dolly Parton. And again, 80 years old, always making people laugh, talking about God. Of course, you remember her in the movie 9 to 5, the song 9 to 5, and of course, so many iconic songs with and without Kenny Rogers, and the whole idea that she could continue to reinvent herself. And remember, from The Bodyguard, the iconic Whitney Houston song that was really the Dolly Parton song.
It's my song, but it's most definitely her record. It didn't sound like that when I had it. She made me rich. I've never been the kind of writer that's always looked for a perfect song. I write because I have to. I write because I love to, and because I want to. There are certain songs, though, that I do write. I think, ooh, now that is good. I Will Always Love You has the simple melody, and it's easy to sing. It also fits so many types of things. Like people tell me, we played this at the hospital when my daddy was dying. He loved the song. They played this at my graduation when my son was going off to college. In fact, Elvis' manager wanted to have the publishing on that song, and I wouldn't allow it because it was my most important copyright. It broke my heart because Elvis didn't get to sing it, but I had to hold on to it. Elvis loved this song. In fact, Priscilla had told me that when she and Elvis were leaving the courthouse after they divorced, he was singing that to her walking out. So she said he did love it.
That was one of the great career decisions Dolly Parton made in her life, because Elvis was Elvis, for God's sake. And she said no, and that demonstrated her astuteness as a businesswoman. That was a great chess move.
the most unbelievable thing I'd ever heard. I'd never even believed my little song could be done like that. People say, well, she claims it's her record. I said, it is her record. It's my song, but it's most definitely her record. It didn't sound like that when I had it. She made me rich.
Remembering the great Dolly Parton at 580 KIDO, phone numbers 580-5436. And amazing when you hear the stories of not only was she a writer, a singer, a producer, a talent, a businesswoman, but Elvis wanted that song. And remember, there was no one bigger than Elvis. A modern day Michael Jackson, maybe. You could say Taylor Swift today, but Elvis, because the distribution was so small compared to today, to tell Elvis, sorry, no. Amazing. Joining us now, our great friend Theo Wold, who, Theo comes, Theo goes, but here he is. Great to have you with us, sir. Welcome home.
Thanks, Kevin. It's good to be with you.
Where have you been?
All over. Too much in D.C., but on Air Force orders down in Florida, and spent a little bit of time in Wyoming with the family this summer, and a lot of time in Idaho. So a little bit all over.
Yeah, you sound kind of tired.
I am tired. I am tired, boss. I'm tired. The 5 kids I think it's catching up to both my wife and I. But it's a blessing and joy. But when they get you up at 4:30 in the morning on the one day you can sleep in, it catches up to you.
Well, they call that a blessing, Theo. Let's talk a little bit about, since we've gotten you ready to go here, let's talk about Prop 1 in Idaho and the move to keep Idaho abortion free. How do you see it playing out, sir?
Kevin, I think this, like a lot of the different questions that are coming before Idahoans, is really going to depend on who's here and who's voting. I think the state is undergoing a massive demographic change, and I think anyone who's confused about what, for example, Micron will mean for the future of the state needs to just go and see who's taking some of the jobs there. These are people who, they don't have the same sort of traditional values, if you will, of longstanding Idaho residents or native-born Idahoans. And I think there's a real possibility for something of a political earthquake in Idaho if people don't get out and vote. People are always asking questions of, like, what's the strategy? What's the best messaging? What's the best talking points to try and educate voters about how extreme Proposition 1 is? And that's all important, but I really do think at the end of the day, if people can't get off their jet skis or leave their second home in McCall for a day and go cast a ballot, none of the best talking points in the world or the education initiatives are going to matter, because a low turnout affair, the Democrats and the far left are going to get their infanticide. And to be clear, that's what this initiative would do. There's just 2 things I'd highlight for your listeners, Kevin. One, the initiative is extremely expansive in its notion of what constitutes fetal viability. So viability really, under the definitions of the initiative itself, you cannot have fetal viability really is defined as without medical assistance, substantive medical assistance. So that would include everything from an intubator to anything you would provide for a premature baby. So really most physicians who have been consulted on the language would say about 8 months, in some instances 9 months. So really a term baby, a full-term baby could be aborted under this language. And the other one I really think should be highlighted to your listeners is they define reproductive rights extremely expansively. And reproductive rights essentially has anything to do with the sexual organs of an individual. And for anyone who's keeping score at home, that means that the state's prohibitions on gender-affirming care would also be they would be thrown out the window with this initiative. So Transing of minor children would become legal under Idaho law if this initiative passes. And look, there's just a whole parade of horribles that come with this initiative. But again, it won't matter if people don't do the simple act, that sacred right that we are all endowed with under our Constitution, do the simple act of getting out and voting against it.
Theo Wold joining us, Kevin Mill in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. You would think, though, and it does seem that people are united to stop this. Various groups that can't get along with each other seem to be agreeing on this issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good sign. The question is whether or not it will be enough to stop the out-of-state money pouring into Idaho to fund this. It should surprise no one that some of the leading supporters of this initiative are, tech barons in Seattle and progressive cause celeb figures in Malibu and Manhattan. I mean, this is kind of their playbook. And the sure sign of this is the initiative language that's on the ballot is essentially a copy and paste job of the same initiative that has run in Ohio, in Montana, in Kansas. They've made a few slight alterations here and there, but in the main, this is literally just a template that they're using to attack the laws of red states all across the country. And it's the same, organizational superstructure that's pushing it. It's the same group of donors who are funding it. So, Kevin, it's great news that our side is, the sort of entities in the state who want to protect the law and want to protect the right of Idaho's sort of small R Republican system of government. I mean, the legislature dealt with this issue. They debated this issue over years, and there were some, parts of the law that were voted down by the state legislature. There were other parts that were affirmed. The way they want to portray this is a group of extremist legislators essentially wrote the law in Idaho in a back room, and that's just simply not true. Maybe it's true for people who just arrived here and be hoodwinked into a storyline that they, stole from a plot, on some kind of TV show. But for anyone who's been following the development of this area of law in Idaho, this has been the work of lots of really smart, insightful people over years, decades, working in concert with physicians and, women's representatives to craft a law that protects women's health, obviously, but more importantly, the health of a mother and the unborn child.
Our great friend Theo Wold joining us, Kevin Mill in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So, Theo, let's go to what's going on with your former boss, your current boss, all of our boss, President Trump.
Yeah, it's been a lot coming out of Washington the last few months. I think everyone is. If you weren't paying attention to sort of national politics, I think everyone is wondering what kind of policy are we actually crafting that will alleviate some of the costs that consumers are facing. What are we doing to secure America's interests at home and abroad? I think Kevin, we've talked about this before, but the length and the reach of the Chinese Communist Party now inside of the United States is immense. I mean, just this morning, a good friend of mine broke a story on Stephen Chu, if you recall, was President Obama's Secretary for Energy, but that prior to Stephen Chu's nomination, he was listed as the president of an overseas CCP organization that was advocating for CCP commercial interests in the United States. And this never came up in his Senate hearing. There was no due diligence by anyone who should have been doing it on the Republican side. And he was, confirmed and put in the role of Secretary of Energy, which handles, as people know in Idaho, our nuclear laboratories, our research facilities. So, I think a lot of people are concerned about a whole host of issues, data centers, the cost of ground beef. But one issue I think that we should be talking about more is how involved China now is in our domestic politics and how they are shaping the national debate surreptitiously through social media and through paid influencers who are pushing a division and pushing a whole host of talking points to pit Americans against each other.
Theo, can you hang on for a minute?
Yeah. Of course.
Okay, thank you, sir. Our great friend Theo Wool joining us. Kevin Miller, 580 KIDO.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, Kevin. I mean, what I was saying was that story you were just telling about, her holding on to the rights to "I Will Always Love You" and sort of refusing the overtures from Elvis. I mean, you're exactly right. I don't think even people who love Dolly, unless you're of that time, I don't think you can really conceptualize what that would mean to say no to Elvis. But tucked into the folds of that same story is really something that's also, I think, overlooked in all of her successes as an entrepreneur, as sort of a cultural icon, and obviously as a singer. She was a really talented artist. And, when you get down to like what is the artistry of music making, in large part, obviously it's the ability to sing or play an instrument, which Dolly excelled at, but also to be a songwriter. I mean, she really was a poet, the poet bard of Appalachia. And I think that's often forgotten about her contributions. And, I said something to a friend the other day that I think a lot of people are commenting on how she really is one of the last remaining universal sort of figures who people on the left and the right can agree upon that, wow, this is a significant American. And I think why that is true is that her music was rooted in a particular place and a particular culture. It wasn't just like cut and paste AI fabricated lyrics that someone in London, just as well as someone, in Singapore could sing. She was telling stories about real people, maybe she grew up with or her own family members, but they were all of sort of the Scots-Irish Appalachian folklore. And that resonated even with people, like Merle Haggard in Bakersfield, or other people would sample her music later on, rappers in New York, because it was quintessentially American. And in that, there's a little thread that speaks to all Americans, wherever you are. And so I think that's one of the things that is the true genius of Dolly, is that she was a really gifted artist, a really gifted writer, and she put to words what so many people experienced as working class Americans, or people struggling with single moms or widows, or people who were down on their luck. And I think even in her saddest songs, she captured something very uniquely American. I hesitate to say we'll never see someone like that again. I hope we will. I hope we will see more musicians, especially in an age of AI. This is, sort of switch topics real quickly, Kevin. One of my theories on AI is people say, oh, it's killing the recording industry. I think sadly that may be true, but I hope one of the things that will grow out of that is people will come to see that AI just produces slop. It's all just kind of generic garbage in, garbage out. A computer doesn't have the same feel, the same sort of humaneness to it. And so people will then start to say, why am I paying for this slop produced, in some studio with digitized music? I'm going to take my money, I'm going to go hear live musicians. And this will open the door again. That has not really been true in 30, 40 years, depending on the genre of music, to smaller acts, to people who have learned the artistry of writing their own lyrics and mastering an instrument, whether that instrument's their voice or a guitar. And I hope that's one of the things that Americans will start to prioritize is true talent, musical talent, performing talent in live venues, that we actually recapture some of our own culture. And that's one of the things I think Dolly really, she really defined, was a big piece of American culture.
And truly never stop working like your boss, President Trump.
No, I mean, my wife is a huge Dolly fan. Her whole family is, they're all working class people. And Dolly is just sort of whether it was Christmas or, July 4th, it's Dolly, Dolly, Dolly. And when she opened that new gas station, Dolly would never say it was a competitor for Buc-ee's, but, using sort of her resources to create a similar model, but with her stamp on it. That was just like a month ago. And my wife was saying, like, man, I wish we could be at that opening for that gas station. But now when you look back on it, Kevin, it's like she was suffering under the immense pain of this cancer, on top of the various health ailments she's had over the last 2 years, where she's had to cancel a couple of different concert appearances in Vegas and some other places. And she was still pushing forward with a new entrepreneurial venture. And and so many people have said in the last 24 hours, there's so many unspoken threads to Dolly's entrepreneurship, how she employed not just members of her own family, but of her community that she grew up in good jobs, not just, folding sweaters at a tourist trap at Dollywood, but good jobs that required skill, that required people to be trained and to develop skills. And the same with this gas station, that they're paying real wages. They have a high school, sort of apprenticeship program attached to it. And it's like that's the kind of person you hope succeeds in our society, because she took her money and her immense celebrity and she invested it in people who deserve, working Americans who deserve a fair shake, whether it was her literacy programs or some of the jobs training programs attached to places like Dollywood. And I wish that more celebrities and people of wealth would look at someone like Dolly and say, I want to do that and 10X it. I want to do a literacy program like the Imagination Library and scale it to every state, every community in the country, and get every kid involved in something like this. That's the real. That's I hope one of the takeaways people will have from her life is that she, as you said, she was always working, but also always working for the betterment of the American people.
Theo Wold joining us. Theo, do you have a minute or not?
Yeah, I can stick around. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Much more coming up with our great friend Theo Wold. As we move on, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio, brought to you by our friends at Treasure Valley Subaru, everything else. So here we have the president, the trade war, the Iranians. Where would you like to begin?
Yeah, real quick on the trade war, I think, look, I think everyone, I was speaking to someone who's a welder the other day, and he was saying, I supported the tariff policy, but the way it's being applied, I'm just getting, damned on every component part I need to do my work. And so I'd say top line, Kevin, I don't think anyone who supported the ideas of getting fair trade likes sort of the notion that we're going to be inundated with cheap plastic crap from Sri Lanka and China and Pakistan. But if you want to buy sort of, highly sophisticated equipment to do a certain type of job from Japan or Norway, that you're going to have to pay nearly half the value of the good in duties. I don't think anyone really likes that. And now, when you look at the situation with Canada, there are two industries in particular that I think Idahoans should be pretty ticked off about. That's the dairy industry in Canada and their lumber, their timber industry. Both of those have operated under essentially protectionist government subsidized monopolies in Canada. They've engaged in extremely predatory pricing and extremely anti-competitive behavior with U.S. firms, with U.S. companies. And look, I think, when you're talking about negotiating the basic framework of whatever we're calling it now, USMC, NAFTA 3.0, these were sticking points for the administration to say, like, look, if we're really going to have free trade or fair trade, you're going to have to actually comply with some of the same rules that we have to abide by in this country, that our dairymen have to play by, that our, timber industry has to play by. And the Canadians said no. And, my good friend, Jameson Greer, who's the current U.S. trade rep, he was quoted just the other day is when he was asked about this whole thing, well, the president declared war on French-speaking Canada because of certain carve-outs protecting, language in regulations and things for Quebec. And Jameson said it's simply not true. The real issue came down to, would Canada stop engaging in anti-competitive behavior, including IP theft of U.S. firms? The same kind of thing that we don't like when the Chinese do to us. And the Canadians walked away from the negotiating table. So I don't think anyone is happy about this. But the one thing I would know, and I know this will anger some people, listening in, is a lot of these questions really come down to, do we have sort of that same spirit that animated the greatest generation to say, I'm going to have to kick in and make a few sacrifices here and there. And I would be the first person to say, no one should have to sacrifice their home, their children's well-being. But are we willing to make a few sacrifices in the short term to have better deals and a better economy for all Americans in the long term? And I think that's at root in this particular trade war with Canada. And the last thing I'll just say on Canada is, I see these cartoons and the memes people putting out about like beavers and Mountie costumes and, lumberjacks complaining about Trump. Let's just be clear about one thing. That Canada doesn't exist anymore. I mean, Canada, in large part, especially in Western Canada, is essentially a colony of the Chinese Communist Party. They have infiltrated their government. They occupy leading roles in a lot of their industries. Canada is a massive natural resource supplier to China. And again, let's just remember what the then Premier of China said to President Trump in the first term, which was, in the future, the United States, and we can say sort of North America, will supply China with labor and natural resources. That's all you're good for. And the Chinese have essentially, caved to that. I mean, Mark Carney, their prime minister, went to a bilateral meeting last year and said he wants a new world order with China at the top. I don't know how much more clear the Canadians can be with Americans than to say, we don't really want you guys to be top dog anymore. And though we share things like NORAD and a totally open, unsecure border, we're going to allow the Chinese to move in and, invest in our security strategy, to invest in our military apparatus, and also to have leading positions of influence in our economy and our media. I think that should worry any American. So I'm not going to justify whether or not the tariffs are going to work. I'm certainly not going to say that, people won't suffer, especially in certain industries. But people should also be clear-eyed about this. This isn't Canada from 1960. They're not just up there playing hockey and drinking maple syrup. Is a demographically changed country, and also one that the Chinese have seen as essentially a way of hanging a sword over the top of the head, literally, of our country. So on that score, look, we'll see. On the Iranian thing, I mean, I don't think anyone is pleased with the way this has gone. If you are, then I don't know what industry you're in, but I don't think it was. I think people who had misgivings about the start of this conflict have been proven right. I think, anyone who has done a war game involving the Strait of Hormuz, I've done a couple, can tell you that even when you're doing essentially a mock-up of what this would look like, it never ends well for the United States or its allied partners. The Strait of Hormuz is an extremely difficult piece of geography, and the Iranians essentially designed their national defense architecture around the idea of bringing the entire global energy supply chain to a screeching halt. And I think every American is in the same place, which is we want this conflict to end as soon as possible. It's hurting us at the pumps, but more importantly, we have real defense industrial base shortages in this country, and we don't have the capacity to produce the kinds of munitions we need as fast as we need them. The conflict in Ukraine really sucked a lot of the storehouse we had left. And I think the Iranians, now backed by their friends in China and Russia, are well aware that we don't have the tools, including certain types of missiles necessary for a prolonged conflict. And the longer they can keep us there, the more they know that we are going to be in a real bind. And I think that's another thing I would just note, not sharing anything that's classified, but the Iranians are obviously being backed by the Chinese in this conflict, and that varies across the board and what type of support, but material and technical support. And so, look, our adversaries across the Pacific know exactly what time it is. I just wish more Americans did.
Theo Wohl joining us as a man who has spent many training sessions in that beautiful hamlet of Montgomery, Alabama. What do you make? What do you make of our media and the Democrats openly cheering for our defeat in this thing?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had something polite I could say over the airwaves. I haven't. It's deeply unsettling, and from planned visits to certain Iranian leaders to just the open disavowal of American military, protection of American military personnel from Democrat Socialists of America, leading figures in the DSA, I should say, not just fly-by-night commentators. I think we are in a very new period, and this is one of those things where people will often say, why is Theo always talking about immigration? the Michigan Senate primary, Democrat Senate primary, was very revealing here, which when you look at the crosstabs and you look at, native born Americans voted overwhelmingly for, Haley Stevens, who is by no means like a moderate Democrat, by no means. She's just not calling for the imposition of Sharia law and some of these other things. But, sort of naturalized Americans and second generation children of immigrants, many of them you can assume, anchor babies, birthright citizens, voted almost at an 89% clip for El Sayed. And one of the things that I think Idahoans are going to wake up to here in the not so distant future is that people who are immigrating to this country, number one, are not being assimilated. And I will argue that point with anyone, anywhere, anytime. This was, something I've shared with you before, Kevin, but behind closed doors in the White House, any number of leftist groups who argued vociferously against President Trump's immigration policies, behind closed doors, they would say, yeah, we have an assimilation crisis. Like we're not assimilating anyone anymore. They're not learning to speak English. They're not learning basic civics. They're certainly not sort of accommodating American cultural customs. It's a giant crisis. It's a tsunami. So we're not assimilating anyone. And number two, I think a lot of these people are now coming with hostile views, and those views include things like it would be better for the world if China ran the world's economy or ran sort of security strategy for the Pacific, and people who say things like, we're going to hold a funeral service for the death of the Ayatollah because he was a leader that we like and we have an affinity for. I think those aren't just one-off like radical Islamic clerics at some crazy mosque in Dearborn. That is increasingly reflective of almost to use Nixon's phrase, like a new silent majority. More and more foreign nationals who are voting in our elections don't actually have the interest of the American Republic at heart. And I think that should worry everyone. And that's played out in sort of the Democrats' media messaging, which is essentially like, I hope we lose. I hope we lose because it will be not just egg in the face of President Trump, but it will be a part of systematically deconstructing the great colonizer, as so many figures like AOC call the United States, that it will be better for the world if the United States is not able to effectuate its own security and economic policy.
And Theo, the false narrative perpetrated by the media where they say this was an unnecessary war.
I mean, that's it's just insane. It's just insane. I mean, and I encourage anyone, a lot of Americans have as their starting point here the fall of the Shah and, the hostage crisis and Jimmy Carter's failed attempt to rescue some of the hostages. But the conflict with Iran, predates even the return of monarchical rule in Iran. We have had our difficulties. The West has had its difficulties with Persia for a long time, but from the imposition of the Islamic Republic, it's not just that they sponsor Hezbollah and Hamas. It's not just that they killed, hundreds of thousands of American servicemen and women in, multiple Gulf War campaigns, including the most recent under President Bush, but that they are a global sponsor of terror, of targeting American citizens on cruise ships, on airplanes, and this has been going on now for about 50 years. So the idea that allowing Iran first to achieve a nuclear weapon or to essentially have Chinese-backed total control of the Strait of Hormuz, it shouldn't worry Americans is crazy town. Now, as I said before, whether or not this was the right strategic choice at this time, I think that's a debatable point. But the idea that this is, quote, like a vanity war for President Trump is ridiculous.
Theo, how do you see the midterms playing out?
I'm not hopeful, Kevin. Which shouldn't surprise you. And the usual proviso attaches here, folks, which is I'm notorious for being fairly pessimistic. I think we're pretty late in the day of the American Republic. I think if people don't put the shoulder to the stone and really start thinking as counter-revolutionaries, we're going to be very, very, very shocked by what happens next. And I mean that counter-revolutionary, the DSA and the far-left radical forces that we see in our own state, and the people who sort of pussyfoot around the DSA, who tacitly accept their support, like Mayor McClain in Boise. Those people are egging on a dramatic revolutionary sort of initiative in our country. Their policies are absolutely bonkers, but they also are open about wanting to push those policies no matter what, including with violence. So I think it's late in the day, and as far as it goes with the midterms, look, here's what I'd say real quick on the scorecard. Alaska's a jump ball or worse. Ranked choice voting was designed to keep Lisa Murkowski in that seat, but the upshot of it is Democrats, as people are now waking up, qualified a candidate for the ballot who was a former Democrat, re-registered as a Republican, has the same name as the incumbent senator, Dan Sullivan. That wasn't designed to play hoodwinks in the primary. That's what a lot of people thought. No, it was designed to siphon votes away from Dan Sullivan in the general election so that under ranked choice voting, when the candidates are re-ranked on first and second preference, the Democrat will benefit. So I think Alaska is a jump ball. I think John Husted, the appointed senator in Ohio who took J.D. Vance's seat, he lacks charisma. He is not good on a lot of working class union issues. Historically hasn't been good on those things. And he's running against Sherrod Brown, who is beloved by Ohio's manufacturing working class base. Even today, people do that sort of differentiation to say, I'm not really pleased with the Democrat Party, but Sherrod Brown is different. That's going to be a really tough race. I think we lose North Carolina as it stands right now. We really are not going to be competitive in the one place where we could have been, which is in Georgia, unfortunately. And I think Texas is a jump ball as well. I mean, Ken Paxton, I hate to break this to a lot of people, but the internal polling does not look good at this point. I think Paxton has a lot of work to do and not a lot of time to get in front of, this Viper, James Talrico. So look, there's just a couple of seats. I think Michigan is also a jump ball. And that's just speaking on the Senate side. On the House side, I mean, we'll see if the redistricting efforts led by the White House Political Strategy Office play out to the way they sort of gamed it out. If they get the maximum number of seats and don't have any, losses, especially in a place like Texas where the maps were drawn, where some current Republican incumbents are going to have marginal seats in a wave year. But I think the House is, unfortunately, I know this will scare a lot of people, particularly because of what the Senate can do. I think the House might be in better shape now than the Senate in retaining Republican control in the Senate.
Theo Wold, anything else that you would like to join us? We understand you're busy, but we do appreciate you joining us when you can.
No, Kevin, it's always great to be with you. I think the last thing I'd just say is there's also going to be another ballot measure on your ballot this November. Anyone listening in should really clue in to, I believe it's HRJ 6, which is a ballot measure that I helped co-write that would declare under law English language as the official language of Idaho. It's the first step to really ensuring that Americans who speak English are not made to feel unwelcome or to feel like they are second-class citizens in their own country in the courts, when dealing with the police or any other agency or arm of government, that the government has to actually speak our own language. And so when people are thinking about Prop 1, not only should you get out and vote against Prop 1, but you should turn out and vote for a constitutional amendment to declare English the official language of the state of Idaho.
Theo Wold, thank you very much, sir.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
Our great friend Theo Wold. Kevin Miller will get your reaction next. Very quick break. 580 KIDO.
Well, Buenos Dias, Idaho. Oh, what was that gentleman's name that was so full of himself that you just had on?
Theo Wold, who used to work for President Trump personally in the White House.
What's his net worth?
I don't know.
In the millions. Isn't it amazing all these guys that got so much money know how to tell the poor Americans how to live? Like our Secretary of Treasury is worth, what's he worth, 800 million? The one that wants to put the heavy tariffs on Canada, or the war with Canada. Oh, what are we going to do with these people? Oh, Dolly Parton. Oh, my God. I will miss her so much every time she comes on or talks. You can't help but have your heart just open right up to that woman. She is so beautiful. Don't you agree, Kevin? She is just one beautiful woman.
Yeah.
And she's written so many articles and books. And one of her most famous quotes that helped me out a long time ago, and her book was, I'm trying to think of what it exactly said. Something about no, I remember now. If you don't like the road, Kevin, you're walking on, start paving another one. Dolly Parton. That's on page 260 of her book. And the other cute one that she wrote was, "It's a good thing I was born a girl, otherwise I'd be a drag queen." That's on page 208. Yes, she's got over 180 quotes by her in that book, and every one is worth reading. And this one applies to you, Kevin. Storms, and you had a lot of storms in your life. Storms make trees take deeper roots, right? That's what she said. Anyway, stay fired up. And did you get my information on my new home away from home?
Yeah, you're moving to where? Argentina?
Argentina.
It looks like a box.
So it's built for $75,000. What do you want? Well, 66 is what I got them back.
Actually, Tea Party Bob says you're full of excrement.
Yeah, Tea Party Bob, I love you, man. I really do. But you should really start turning your life around because, at your age, what do you got? 5, 6 years, and those aren't really going to be good years. So that's 5, 6 summers you got to turn it around, Bobby. Stay fired up, Kevin. And Bobby, nobody likes you.
We go to Chandler, who joins us now at 580 KIDO. Hello, Chandler.
Hey, Kev. Good morning. Wow, lots of good stuff today. I'd like to quote the immortal Lee Corso, not so fast. But first, regarding Dolly Parton, did you know she was actually a Playboy bunny? Did you know that? Hugh Hefner had quite the eye for talent, and even the gays loved her. Not so fast. So first off, Theo Wold made a mistake, a very important mistake that I would like to correct. Take your favorite AI tool and ask the question, is Hamas Sunni or Shia? And it'll say Hamas is Sunni, right? Not Shia, not Iran aligned, not at all. That's the Gulf states, that's Saudi Arabia, that's, if you can't even get your enemy right, you're going to lose.
The YouTube joining us now, Jared Halpern. And Jared, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Well, like the rest of us and the president and like you, mourning the death of Dolly.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I was thinking a lot about this the other day, last night, and I can't think of another American who was so beloved that transcended. It didn't matter what your politics were, what your background was, where you grew up, your geography. Everybody loved her. And that's such a rare quality in our divided country right now, that you have an individual who just across the spectrum was beloved for one reason or another, whether it was her talent, her songwriting, her philanthropy, being known as the book lady. She was a remarkable human being, and fitting that President Trump, I think, immediately had flags lowered to half staff. Seeing that the political folks that weighed in, I mean, again, it crossed the entire there's no Republican Democratic divide with Dolly Parton, right? And that's, I feel like in this day and age, just an increasingly rare occurrence.
Yeah, and just the scope, not only a star, singer, writer, producer, entrepreneur, builder, philanthropist, television star.
She did it all, and seemed so comfortable in her own skin. Again, I think something that's rare these days. And just learning more about her background, growing up, she described it dirt poor in rural East Tennessee, the Smoky Mountains, 11 or 12 siblings. But, knew what she wanted to do and made it happen. And then made sure that she opened a bunch of doors for anybody else that wanted to make their dreams come true. I mean, that imagination library, I think, has given out something like 500 million books. That's an extraordinary legacy just in and of itself to young children.
No, and I'm just amazed by it. You're surrounded by a lot of people that do what they love. You do what you love. And, the idea that they continue to work. We talk about that with politicians, but here you have Dolly that was going to go to Vegas. And I know you're not a shrink, but I mean, the ability to just keep working.
I mean, if you love your work, it doesn't feel like work. And I think that was the attitude. I think she'd expressed that in a couple of interviews. She was once asked, like, why don't you just retire? And she said, I wouldn't even know what that is. And again, I think it's because she loved what she did. She seemed to be driven by this idea of continuing to give back and find ways to make an impact. I was listening to, I usually listen to some country music stations driving around anyway, but last night, driving home, it was really something to hear all of these, especially young artists, talk about the influence that Dolly had, the advice that Dolly gave. Sometimes unsolicited, she would reach out to young artists. I mean, that's pretty remarkable for somebody like her. She is, nobody would have blamed her if she decided to spend the last years of her life just, back at home, relaxing, enjoying her fortune. But that didn't seem to be what Dolly Parton was interested in. And you're right, that you see that a lot, I think, in Congress, sometimes to its detriment. Obviously, a criticism of Congress is that people stay too long and they're too old and all of that. But again, I think for so many people in elected office, it feels something more than a job. It's a calling. They're too active. Their minds are active. They don't want to stop. And certainly that was true of Dolly Parton, wasn't it?
We could also say that's true for the president, really.
Yeah, both 80 years old, too.
Yeah.
And he's as active as ever. And again, I think, some people are just built differently. I don't know if I'll be working at 80 years old. I am a little bit more than half that age, and I wake up tired a lot. So we'll see. But I think that, there's probably some genetics involved. But again, I think if you enjoy the work, you feel a calling to the work. It doesn't feel like work, and you do it much longer than a lot of other people, and certainly Dolly was one of those folks, right? I mean, you're right. And she had like concerts on the book, I think. So that's extraordinary. 80 years old and still performed as well as ever, right? I mean, still got, the rhinestones and the voice never left her. Willie Nelson's still touring. So, I mean, my advice, go out and see these folks. Because we don't know how much longer we're gonna be living on the same earth with them.
Jared Halpern, I guess we'll let you out on that one. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Take care.
Take care. All right, coming up next, Mark, the watchdog of Eagle. Kevin Miller, 580 KIDO.
Good morning, sir. Oh, there we go. Yeah, Dolly Parton. She was a true American icon, just like apple pie and baseball. And, you look at today's singers, the pop rock artists, the hip hop, the rap ones, and with no class. Dolly had class. She was a class act in herself and really represented true Americana. That's pretty much all I have to say on that, Kevin. I did want to mention, because the flock cameras seem to be a daily topic here at KIDO on your show. I sent you from Breitbart yesterday, 4 police department employees arrested on charges of misusing flock cameras. This is not the first time I've seen stories like this. It was one where some prosecutor back east was using flock cameras to track her boyfriend. And there's a website. I sent you this too. You're a bad boy, Kevin. I know you're not looking at my emails, because here's one that would fit the bill here for you, and your listening audience here at KIDO. It's a website. This was from Breitbart. Have I been flocked? Website lets you check if police search your car using flock camera system. And I can send it to you again, but it's called Have I Been Flocked? It's a website. You click on that, put in your license plate, and it's a system to let you know if the flock system has been, used on your license plate. And if it's in a person's license plate appears in their database. So it was built through FOIA records or public records request, and organizers caution that some information may be outdated or incomplete, but it's something you need to check out. Real quick on data centers. I sent you also a story just last week. It was, you're talking about the data centers themselves and what's going on. There was a Kentucky mother and daughter who refused $26 million offer for their family farm from an AI data center developer back east in Maysville, Kentucky. The one daughter was offered for 463 acres, Delcia Bear at $48,000 per acre, and 71 acres from her mother, Ida Huddleston, at $60,000 per acre. But the woman originally, both these ladies agreed to sell, and then they learned that their family farm of nearly 200 years would have hosted a data center, and their answer changed to no. So that's kind of interesting little thing to kind of know out there. But that's pretty much all, I have to say. It's a shame when we lose people like Dolly Parton. And again, they're true Americana and what really represents America, and not some of the trash that we get out there, these so-called entertainers who they don't have the class, the etiquette. They don't even come close to somebody like her. You have a great day there at KIDO, Kevin Miller.
All right. God bless our friend Mark, the watchdog of Eagle, remembering Dolly Parton. More on that in a minute. We do want to remind you as well, the big Meta suit. Apparently, Meta has agreed to cop a plea. And it shows you the Trump administration and how they're bringing people to justice. This has been going on for quite some time. But when you get a big settlement, so be it. Here's our own Tanya J. Powers at 580 KIDO.
The landmark settlement cuts short a federal trial in California over claims made by 29 states that Meta's Facebook and Instagram platforms were designed to addict children, among other claims. The settlement for Meta to pay up to $17 billion also includes an agreement to make major changes to its products. Those include daily usage limits and nighttime blocks for users under 18, as well as bans on features that exacerbate mental health issues. Meta denies wrongdoing in the agreement. California, Colorado, Kentucky, and New Jersey were among the states that sued Meta in 2023, and the settlement ends the trial, which was expected to see Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg testify before a jury in federal court. Tanya J. Powers, Fox News.
Yeah, that wasn't really going to happen. That wasn't really going to happen at all. And yet, now they've settled $17 billion to prevent Zuckerberg from being on the stand. More on that in a minute. Before that, the Canadians say they're going to beat us up.
Here at the White House today, for once, there is less focus on the Iran war and more focus on the trade war, where leaders are retaliating against recent new tariffs against them with some big new tariffs of their own on U.S. products. 50% tariffs on steel and aluminum products from the U.S., 25% on dairy, fish, and seafood from the U.S., and 15% on select farm equipment and machinery. And the president also now hoping to pull a Gulf of Mexico on Canada. He posted on Truth Social, the United States is giving serious consideration to changing the name of Lake Ontario to Lake America, and that we don't expect to be doing much business with Ontario any longer.
And then the people in Ontario say we're going to cut off your electricity. And so the fun begins and continues in Trumpland, if you will. But it might not all be fun for the president.
This is one of the reasons Democrats winning across the country in November is so urgent. If we take the House and we take the Senate, we can impeach and remove RFK Jr. And if we don't, he's going to have 2 more years of unfettered access to America's public health infrastructure. And that will be disastrous.
Now, she's not your typical loon.
Joe Biden.
But she is a doctor. She's running as a Democrat in South Carolina. Good luck to her. But there's the plan. It's not like let's all get along. It's going to be payback time. So the top 3 stories we are talking about, the Canadians are mad. Meta is paying a bunch of money, and the Democrats plot their revenge. Let's get to number 1 here, where we're talking about Meta. You know, I think on one hand, I really admire people that use these platforms, these means of distributions to get out and to do things. And hey, I've got 75,000 followers, and digital marketing, and what do they call it, affiliate marketing, and all sorts of ways to reach people. It has really broadened the message in some aspects of both conservatism and liberalism, and it's wonderful. But the problem with being online, and the problem that a lot of people have with it, is you have the potty mouths. You have everybody being a tough guy. You have people saying and swearing and doing everything else. In fact, it's funny. I always have a joke around the office here at the broadcast center. And I always say, if Facebook were real, you would, reply how you really feel. Hey, what do you think of this? I think it stinks. Nobody does that because nobody wants to be mean. Of course, when it comes to politics, everybody wants to be mean. When it comes to disagreeing with someone, you can't disagree without being disagreeable. And that Meta has decided to take one for the team. They were worried about Zuck getting cross-examined. The idea that the jiu-jitsu guy would have to explain things. Nobody likes that. And that's the brilliance usually of plaintiff litigations. And by the way, when you have, 29 states, you're not going to be able to bleed them dry. You're not going to be able to run out the clock. You're not going to be able to do anything except take your lumps. And that's really what, lawsuits are about. Discovery. Case in point, Boise State left the Mountain West. They sued. Everybody sued. The Pac-12 sued. Sued. Everybody sued. And then when the judge said to the Mountain West, you're going to have to reveal your emails in discovery, then everybody decided to settle. Nobody wanted the internal emails to determine who colluded with whom. What were the ideas involved in, well, if somebody leaves, we're going to hit them with this. Nobody likes that. So couple that by a gazillionth, and here you have Meta, still, to me, the most powerful, influential company when it comes to social media. Sure, you can have your TikTok and your Instagram and everything else, but really, people love the book. And you're going to say, well, Kevin Miller, it's the old people that love the book. The old people still run things. Well, Kevin, aren't you an old person? Yeah, I'm an outlier of an old person. I don't run anything. I barely run this show. Think about that for a moment, though. Facebook admitting $17 billion worth of damages. Now they're going to turn it off. Wouldn't it be nice if we could just turn it off for all of ourselves? We used to laugh at people that were addicted to their phones. Wherever you go now, people are addicted to their phones. Maybe we should start something here in Idaho after the IG Fun Run where we just have a day without phones. And you have to pledge not to look at your phone. Sure, you could take phone calls. Sure, if there's an emergency, yes, by all means. On the other hand, do we really need to have the death scrolls, as they call it now, to fuel the AI, if you will? Speaking of that, on our website, KIDOTalkRadio.com, we put together a couple of articles, one of them having to do with how to save money on your electric bills. It is the buzz of the supermarkets. It's the buzz everywhere. I was talking to Diana yesterday at Albertsons, not to be confused with my conversation with Nancy at Albertsons. A lot of Albertsons conversation, and Bert yesterday at Albertsons. A lot of conversations at Albertsons. And all of us said, was that the most expensive electric bill we've ever had? And yes, we did talk a little bit about the Channel 7 story where Idaho Power said, well, there's not enough water, so that increases your electric. We had bad air, that increases your electric. Probably have the data centers, that increases your electric. And then I thought to myself, well, we can't really bag on Idaho Power because great place to work and you're always going to have a job because we always need power. But what could we do? So I came up with a few ways of how to save money. And then I found out some more ways on how to save money. Some are very simple. Some not very elaborate, but common sense. And since every little penny, even though we eliminated the penny, now they're talking about eliminating the nickel matters. Why not share that with you? So that is available on our website. And by the way, we do have a preview of the Warbird Roundup this weekend. So we got a big weekend coming up. We've got the Warbirds in Nampa. We have the Balloon Classic. We haven't really talked about that. Brought to you by so many local folks, including our friends at Micron and other places. But the idea of it at Morrison Park beginning on Wednesday, Next Wednesday, it's Kids Day. Kids get up there. They get to talk to the pilots. Thursday, I think, is Diplomatic Immunity Day or something like that. I'll be there Thursday morning. So I'll be here, but I'll be there, but I'll be here, but I'll be there. And then Friday is the double whammy, the morning lineup, and then the night glow, which I'll be there as well. And then Saturday and Sunday, which is cool because you can go in, and Sunday, to me, is one of the hidden treasures of Balloon Fest or the Balloon Classic. I like to call it balloons, balloons, because people are either sleeping or at home and not working, so you can get in and out of Van Morrison Park. Complete details on our website, How to Survive and Thrive, the Spirit of Boise Balloon Classic coming up next week. It is our final event of the year, and we do a lot of these events where we do our very best so people can go either free or at a very low price. You go to Canyon County Kids Fair, the Kids Expo. It is very affordable, $5 to get in, I believe. The garage sale, $5 to get in, plus all the vittles you can take if people want to give them to you. BMF, Boise Music Festival. By the way, again, chances are you can win free tickets. And the Balloon Classic, like I said, it's going to be a great day. So we hope to see everybody there coming up next week. And again, that's our last event of the year. We, however, are getting ready for Miller's Mission, but that's not till November. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Back to this deal with the Democrats.
This is one of the reasons Democrats winning across the country in November is so urgent. If we take the House and we take the Senate, we can impeach and remove RFK Jr. And if we don't, he's going to have 2 more years of unfettered access to America's public health infrastructure. And that will be disastrous.
She's an interesting person. She's a Democrat, articulate. She's also in one of the reddest states in the country, South Carolina. And I heard Trey Gowdy yesterday talking about this with Brett Baer on Fox at 580-KIDO. And Trey Gowdy saying, I'm from South Carolina. I know these people. If Darlene Graham gets out of the primary, she'll win. But the other guy, he's a little bit too conservative. So looks like South Carolina will stay in the fold. Now, if we could only win North Carolina, thankfully, Idaho looks pretty good, just like our friends at Beacon Plumbing. Call them today at 208-516-2061. And we're not just talking about plumbing, although plumbing is very important. Whether you're talking about your heart or you're talking about your home, you could have plumbing problems, you could have electrical problems. It's good that you have either a cardiologist or a home service company that can help you with your plumbing, your drains, your electrical, your heating, your AC, and that's Beacon Plumbing. We have proudly used Beacon Plumbing. The employees come over. They're very friendly. They're very patient with us, with myself and Mrs. Miller, either at our home or on the phone. They do an outstanding job. Book your service today. Make sure your heat is ready to go for the cold. And, of course, the last 6 weeks of summer or 8 weeks of summer or 3 months of summer, make sure that your AC is working as well. 208-516-2061. Please tell them Kevin Miller sent you. 580-KIDO, your home for Fox News is 580. No, it's 580. KIDO.
KIDO. Sister, sis, Aunt Granny to one generation and Gigi to the next. This video announcement is something Dolly asked of me years ago, before I fully absorbed it as a future reality. As her head of security for more than 2 decades, a role my father Larry held before me, I have imagined the heaviness of this moment, but haven't truly felt it until now. It is an honor that is mixed with absolute pride and great sadness. But sadness lies with us, not with Dolly. Dolly has lived in the light and is in the arms of Jesus, surely met by Carl, her parents, and countless others who have watched her and longed for her to meet them in the heavens. I first went on the road with Dolly as a kid, getting a taste of the road life in the early 1980s. Dolly opened doors not just for me, but for her entire family to reach the potential we didn't even know was possible. Dolly also opened doors for generations of singers, songwriters, musicians, and dreamers from every walk of life and across every continent. By her example, we believed that anything was possible. She never saw a door she couldn't open, and the doors she opened made and changed history. My family and I have shared a lifetime of beautiful memories with Dolly, but so have you. She has always been on your television, your record player, your CD, and on your phone playlist, becoming an extended part of your family, whether you liked it or not. Our family and the team she has entrusted with her legacy will work diligently to ensure her spirit will live with us forever. Dolly was a farmer, just like her daddy. He farmed the soil, she farmed songs and happiness. Dolly called me and said she wants to rest in a beautiful bed of plush cotton because after a life wearing heavy rhinestones, she finally deserves to be comfortable and have some rest. Rest in peace, Aunt Dolly, Aunt Granny, Gigi. May God bless Dolly Parton. And may God bless you all. She will always love you.
Tea Party Bob joins us now at 580 KIDO.
Well, good morning, Mr. Miller. Great show today. Thank you so much. All I can say about Dolly is she was a real example of what you can do when you have the freedom that America offers. You know, coming up from the lowest economic level and much childhood hardship, to be not only a star in the music world, but having 24 number one hits. But she was also a philanthropist, giving away hundreds of millions of dollars to help others. She lived the American dream, and we never hear enough about what America does offer us. And may God rest her soul. You know, I want to thank you for having Theo Wall back on the KIDO show again. You know, he always has some great insights into what is happening in our country and our state. And this conversation about the Chinese is right on target, but most Americans are so busy complaining about how bad things are in America, they forget that there has been an invasion taking place for several decades as the Chinese have influenced every sector of our economy. They continue to steal our technology with literally no ramifications, and our American companies appear to be willing to let them take it so they can have access to the Chinese markets. You know, China's goal is to become the world's preeminent power by 2049, the 100th anniversary of the People's Republic. And while there is no real imminent danger, they're not in a hurry, and they just continue to chip away with their prowess in EVs, solar panels, rare earth processing, and shipbuilding, and they are very fast closing the AI gap. But all is not lost. If you look carefully at the Chinese birth rate is collapsing, and their workforce is shrinking, their property sector is in crisis, and their local governments are in deep debt. So Trump's export controls have helped choke off their access to our most advanced semiconductors, and they have been using propaganda on us for some time through the liberal and social media, as we find out more every year. Their theft of our technology and intellectual property, counterfeiting and pirated software, costs the U.S. economy up to $600 billion a year. And they have used that stolen technology to bootstrap themselves to up the technology ladder and are now becoming more innovative themselves with AIs and EVs, drones, and whatever else you can see them coming up with. You know, Trump's efforts to get off the China supply chain for pharmaceuticals, rare earth minerals are critical. And while China's purchase of U.S. farmland is still a small percentage, our concern is because some of the farmland is close in proximity to U.S. military bases. The Trump administration is now probing the influence of China on our colleges with all of the money they have donated to their endowments. And let's not forget the 65,000 Chinese nationals who crossed the border during Biden's open border policy, who are mostly military-age males. You know, on the latest coalition between China and Canada, there are serious intelligence and security concerns, as Canada is part of the Five Eyes intelligence program and has a huge border with us. And the Chinese invasion has already started with a reported 1,000 Chinese nationals coming across the border every month. So while the threat is not yet imminent, it is becoming more concerning for national security. And just a quick note, it's high time Zuckerberg got hit in the wallet for his algorithms that influence and are harmful to our children using his platforms. I only wish that it had cost him $1 trillion and put him out of business. I would say good riddance to bad rubbish. let's not forget our politicians allowed him to build a new AI center to go without any restrictions on power or water. So thank you again for my time, Mr. Miller, and thank you for your great show. Without it, we would all be lost.
Well, we're lost without Dolly.
That is for sure, my friend. One of my favorites.
Yeah, she was always very friendly.
Well, she was a damn good singer, too. And she did a lot of her own songs. She wrote a lot of them. Truly an American treasure. And I'm sure we're going to be singing her songs for many decades to come.
Yeah, I could just imagine you singing 9 to 5.
Hey, don't think that I haven't been involved in a country and western band before, because I was for 2 years, and I enjoyed every minute of it.
What was the band's name? Hickey and Bicky?
I don't think that's any of your business.
Wait a minute. I heard, were you part of the Traveling Wilburys? That's what I heard. I heard it was Petty, you, Ray Orbison, and you were the guy, Ringo Starr, you were the guy that kept singing, I'm so tired of being lonely.
You know, our band leader was a Marine staff sergeant. If he heard you say that, he'd probably come up and punch you right in the nose.
Well, that's not very nice.
Well, I know, but you weren't very nice talking about us.
That's not a denial. So you were in the Traveling Wilburys, huh? Not everybody could be a Wilbury.
I'm into blueberries, my friend. I like blueberries.
Well, Tea Party Bob, we love you. You take care.
Always fun talking to you, my friend. Have a great day.
Appreciate you. Tea Party Bob, talking about China, Zuckerberg, and of course, remembering Dolly.
Cancer. She was hands-on here, everything from building it, the experiences, the creativity. She made tons of appearances here. The world got the news about Parton's death yesterday afternoon. Tons of tributes have been pouring in around the world. Everyone from A-list celebrities, businesses, President Trump, and former presidents. They're, of course, mentioning her iconic music, her acting work, but what everyone is honing in on is how good of a person she was and her passion for philanthropy work. She helped millions of kids through her massive literacy program, Imagination Library.
And once again, remembering Dolly Parton. Just again, Kevin Miller with you here. Would love to hear more from you at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. If she were just a movie star, it was something I couldn't believe that 9 to 5 actually was in 1980, along with Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda, about well before the women's rights movement, well before anything else, talking about sticking it to your boss. That was 9 to 5. And then in 82, the best little horror house in Texas, she played Mona, the madam who presided over the Chicken Ranch. One of the more interesting, really, movies, Rhinestone. Do you remember Rhinestone in 1984? She played Sylvester Stallone. That's right, one of the most famous flops in movie history. She played Jake Ferris, a singer who tries to make a New York cabbie Stallone a country star. The iconic Steel Magnolias in 1989. Dolly Parton playing along with so many other stars, including the iconic Olympia Dukakis in Steel Magnolias, playing Truvy, the Louisiana hairdresser whose home serves as a gathering spot for the local women. Joyful Noise, she played Gigi Sparrow, a member of a local Georgia church group. When you think of Dolly Parton, a life defying expectations. And like I said, many of us get tired, many of us are this, but Dolly puts all of us to shame at 80, getting ready to go actually do a residency in Vegas. The Wall Street Journal writes, underestimated initially as a country singer, TV personality, and actress, Dolly Parton, who died Tuesday at age 80, defied expectations throughout her 7-decade career. From the late 1960s onward, she took a special delight in winning over audiences with a playful personality, a folksy naturalism, and an eager singing voice. On stage, she gracefully offset the blonde bombshell image she both cultivated and poked fun at. Thanks to her Appalachian accent, irrepressible talent, and quick wit, she seemed to live on national television in the 1970s and quickly became country's biggest selling and most beloved superstars. Hiding behind the colorful Southern archetype she's described as overdone was a Renaissance woman. 25 singles reached number one, a female record, 49 career top 10 country albums, 113 chart country singles. Her 49th solo album, Rockstar, just 3 years ago in 2023, was her highest charting Billboard 200 album, peaking at number 3. She won 10 career Grammy Awards and received the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 2011. And then going on and on, talking about all these things was just simply amazing when we're thinking about this. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. I go back to this issue of just dealing with this and the loss of Dolly and where we are today. It is simply amazing to think of the talent, the energy, the enthusiasm, and all the people that she has left behind. We will miss Dolly.
Known for her songwriting, unique fashion, and over-the-top personality, Dolly Parton was not only a music icon, but a trailblazer. Born on January 19, 1946 in Pittman Center, Tennessee, to Robert Lee Parton and Avie Lee Owens. Parton was the fourth of 12 kids. She grew up in a one-room cabin out in the Smoky Mountains. Early love for music led her to begin writing songs in grade school, and she made her first appearance on the Grand Ole Opry in 1959 at only 13 years old. The day after she graduated from high school, Parton packed her bags and moved to Nashville to start chasing her musical dreams. She soon married her husband, Carl Dean, in 1966. They remained together for nearly 59 years until he died in 2025. Parton's first shot at stardom came when she joined the Porter Wagoner Show in 1967.
I was lucky that I got a chance to be that exposed to that many people at one time, and that was really what kind of shot me up there and got me a good grip.
While on the show, Parton decided to pursue her career as a solo artist, and in 1971 debuted her first #1 solo hit, Joshua, followed by other chart toppers like Love is Like a Butterfly, I Will Always Love You, and the legendary Jolene.
Jolene, 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 Jolene. I don't know how you're doing on the inside, honey, but your hair's just holding up beautiful.
Parton was introduced to a new audience while acting in films including Steel Magnolias and 9 to 5. Over the decades, she earned many honors and accolades, including her induction into the Grand Ole Opry in 1969 and the Country Music Hall of Fame in 1999. Also awarded the Library of Congress Living Legend Medal in 2004. And in a Nashville theater in 2025, she debuted Dolly, a true original musical based on her life. Parton was known for her business and humanitarian work. Her theme park in Tennessee, Dollywood, opened in 1986, and her charity Imagination Library provides over 1 million free books to kids every single month. Parton even developed a museum dedicated to her life inside a Dolly-inspired hotel in Nashville. With more than 60 albums and over 24 #1 hits, Dolly Parton lived her life not straying far from her roots and always keeping a positive outlook on life and her career.
And I can look back on a lot of things that's happening. I think, oh, thank you, God. At least my life seems to have made a difference and to have meant something to a lot of people.
Alexis McAdams, Fox News.
Yeah. Making a difference. Very different from the world we live in today, right? The world that we live in today is just amazing that we could have somebody like Dolly Parton. We'll take more of your calls on Dolly at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. We also have people that are proudly talking about the Democrats taking over. Hakeem Jeffries being interviewed that, I mean, the election hasn't even happened, and he's mad because he's being asked legitimate questions concerning the people now associated with the new Democratic Party. Hassan Piker, Al Sayed, the Democratic Socialist. They're not just coming for the Republicans. They're coming for everyone.
On another important issue, Leader Jeffries, you issued a statement yesterday slamming what you called the malicious claim that American Jews are inviting violence against themselves as, quote, dangerous and anti-Semitic. Was that in reference to far-left influencer Hassan Piker and his recent very controversial comments?
Yes, those comments were dangerous, malicious, and anti-Semitic, and should not be tolerated by anyone in the public square. What we've seen is a startling rise of hate crimes.
Right, but on the other hand, this guy is the guy behind Syed in Michigan. This is the guy that's behind a lot of these folks. He's sitting there doing, calling the shots, which is just simply amazing when you're thinking about this. Here you have, Hakeem Jeffries basically trying to say, oh, yes, I denounce this. I denounce it. Well, are you going to announce the candidate? Are you going to denounce the candidate who, in fact, is being fueled by this? I do believe that the leader does have a problem with this, has a major problem, and we'll see if he plays out with this here at 580-5436-580-KIDO.
All across the United States of America, but particularly in this moment, directed against our Jewish brothers and sisters. And everybody, regardless of ideological perspective, should be willing to denounce this rise of anti-Semitic rhetoric, hate crimes, and bigotry, and actually try to move us to a society where we embrace everyone, even where there are differences on issues, be they foreign or domestic. The notion that people should be targeted because of their religious beliefs or ethnicity or race, whatever the case may be, that's fundamentally inconsistent with who we are in this country.
Yes, indeed. Hassan Piker's clout among Democrats, though, particularly some younger Democratic voters, seems to be growing. We saw, for example, his prominence in the Michigan Senate Democratic primary. So why not call him out by name in your statement if you feel so passionately about this issue?
I've just addressed Hassan Piker's comments as it relates to the Jewish community as forcefully as I can, and I will continue to do that.
Yes, but in your original statement, he was not addressed by name. That's why I was raising the question. Leader Jeffries, you want to give me a final thought before I let you go? And we're grateful to you for joining us.
Yeah, in other words, I'm going to apologize for asking another final question, and then I'd ask you to answer that again. Why are you afraid of this guy, Hakeem Jeffries?
Well, there are 70 days until the midterm elections, and we're either going to move the country forward or we're going to turn back the clock. And Donald Trump's administration has been a disaster for the American people. That is clear. And we have an opportunity to take back control of the House and the United States Senate so we can begin the process of ending this national nightmare. And look, our commitment as Democrats is...
Yeah, your commitment as Democrats is, well, we're not woke anymore. We're not this, we're not that. But make no point about it, they're coming for everyone.
This is one of the reasons Democrats winning across the country in November is so urgent. If we take the House and we take the Senate, we can impeach and remove RFK Jr. And if we don't, he's going to have 2 more years of unfettered access to America's public health infrastructure. And that will be disastrous.
Yes, he's going to do that, have access to just about everyone, right? Phone numbers here, 580-5436-580-KIDO. It's time for the president to rally the troops. Time for the president to get rolling on this. Time for really the president to make it happen. And obviously rallying the base. Great news out of South Carolina. Great news out of Oklahoma. And once again, when you go after people and you do these things, the bottom line is they're going to hit back. And they're going to hit back again and again and again and again. And as I said before, I look at this thing, and this is going to be very, very challenging for the administration. As I said before, it is crazy when you're thinking about this. the idea that we could have the Democrats taking over the House and the Senate. And it is no fun being in the minority. And let your heart not be fooled by these people. Affordability, tell me, who has the answer to making things more affordable? I'd really like to know. Is it getting out of the Iranian situation? Well, tell me, besides totally annihilating that place and making it even worse, how we're going to get out of the Iranian war. Now we're going to give them the economic D-Day, and we're going to lobby people we may like, we may not like. We may do this, we may do that, to sit back and do these things. So to say to Russia, to China, when they think that they have us on the ropes, this is crazy. This is nuts. This is absurd. This is wild. At 580-5436, 580-KIDO, I sit back and I say to myself, how is this going to make it better? And basically, they just sit there and tell us, well, it's going to be great. We're going to do this. The Democratic Party is attacking itself based on the Democratic Socialists that want to eliminate the Supreme Court, eliminate the presidency, eliminate borders, eliminate the police, eliminate everything. So tell me, what type of country is that? It's not America. It's not Venezuela. I really don't know what it is. Do you? And that's why we're always talking about the right path, the right way, the right move. So we'll continue to fight with Clay and Buck, and of course, Sean and Lars and everybody else. Do appreciate the KIDO All-Star lineup. And of course, no bigger All-Star than you. Make sure you check out our podcast, available everywhere, including on the YouTube, and some great stories available on our website. Ada County declaring war on mice and rats. That's right, the issue of rats in Ada County. Big one. This time, they mean business, and the rats are going to have to answer to the mayors of every Ada County city. They're actually going to have a meeting. Now, there's no public comment, but I believe either the mayors or the representatives of these cities will, in fact, be there to talk about the rat problem, the growing rat problem. So you can read about that story. If you have a rat problem that began in Eagle and now has moved throughout the Treasure Valley, you can read the details on how you can hear what's going on through our friends with the Ada County Commissioners. Good day. God bless. And remember, keep the faith, and Kevin Miller loves you.